just have to get through the tech
Are we
review.
up
and
and
some
going?
action.
Doing things.
Are we up and going?
We gotta get us phone going or not?
Yeah, banner it all set up.
Okay. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let the record show all members are present. I get a motion and a second to
As
proceed
we move.
the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, motion passes. Well, next up, we have Matt Wyatt, Director Planning and Development, and Pam Colstrip, Acting Director Planning and Development. Public hearing on the proposed preliminary plat of Bond subdivision, a subdivision situated in Lewis Township, and to approve and authorize board to sign Planning and Zoning Resolution 2021-01. Can I get a motion and a second to open the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
Public hearing open. Anybody here to speak in favor of the Bond subdivision?
I don't see them here, but
Okay.
I don't know if they're on the line.
Pardon?
I don't know if they're on the conference line.
Anybody on the line speak in favor? Anyone speak opposed? Crickets. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close. Second.
Was I supposed to do a roll call on the opening of the public hearing?
Oh, sorry.
So do we need to go back and
Yeah.
do that? I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
A roll call to open public hearing.
Supervisor Belt,
Aye.
Supervisor Shea,
Aye.
Wickman,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Groupie.
Aye.
So the public hearing is now open. Anybody speaking in favor? Still none? Anybody speaking opposed? Still none? So we got a motion and a second still to close it. Supervisor Schultz and seconded by Supervisor Shea.
Yep.
Okay, roll call.
Chairman Belt,
Aye.
Supervisor Shea,
Aye.
Supervisor Wickman, Supervisor Schultz,
Aye.
Supervisor Groby.
Aye.
Okay, now we need a motion and a second to approve and authorize board to sign planning and zoning resolution 2021-01.
Second.
Any discussion? Just created 2 lots is all it did, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah. Okay, roll call.
Chairman Belt,
Aye.
Supervisor Wickman,
Aye.
Supervisor Groby,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz,
Aye.
and Supervisor Shea.
Aye.
Okay, next up, we have a discussion and or decision to sign the forgivable loan agreement for the water improvement project.
Motion approved.
Second?
I will second.
Second. Discussion?
How's things going?
Man, had a rough week, I think.
I reviewed it, it's fine. Regional Water has had a rough week, but it hasn't affected this particular project except in our other area. We I've gotten board authorization to proceed with this project. They'll ratify it just as soon as the Board of Supervisors does. And we've moved, based on what we heard so far, we're moving forward with the engineering. So we're treating this like it's a ready-to-go deal and acting accordingly.
Awesome. Well, speak kind of on behalf of the board, I guess if there are issues or anything that comes up in the meantime, just please let us know, keep us in the loop. We're here to help make this thing go through. So it's really important to us that this happens, so that way this neighborhood that gets built out there, the two neighborhoods, I should say, they're gonna be a huge tax base for us.
Will the county's contribution come in at the tail end of the project, or does it need to be at the beginning?
That is, let's see, we've got county's contribution will come in, let's see, within 30 days of the commencement date of the agreement. So once we pick, that's as it's written here, yeah, within 30 days of the commencement, that's when the county's contribution comes in. Forgivable once we have,
Substantial.
yeah, once we've substantially completed the project.
So I take it, Pam, you'll know when it's substantially gonna go.
Yeah. We both will.
Okay.
So I don't know when
Sorry.
you guys want to,
So the commencement.
give them the funds.
As the commencement, it'll be 30 days after that. So once his board ratifies it and signs it, that would be, to me, the date of the agreement. And then then we'll have to process this through for payment to them, so that way then they receive it within 30 days.
So do you want that to come on your agenda? Or,
Probably, wouldn't we?
Well, we've
Already
already,
approved it, so I don't know.
Yeah,
if we
but-
have to.
we've already approved it, and we're gonna approve and sign the agreement. It's just, you're gonna have to create, I assume you'll create a claim, right?
There will have to be a claim process through.
Yeah, I think that's, if you do the claim, we're good to go, because then we're already approving it anyway, so.
The claims come through us, so,
and you decided what fund to,
yeah.
To pay, okay.
It's coming out of the American Rescue Funds. That's what we,
Yeah, that was on that list.
water.
So, like I said, any hiccups, let us know right away.
My board will authorize this at their meeting on Thursday, or they will formally sign it. They've already given the authorization to proceed.
Okay.
So,
Awesome. Great, looking forward to it.
Any other discussion?
I'm good.
Okay,
Things
all,
right there.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next up, we have,
Thank you.
thanks. Are you back and full rolling then? Are you guys back up and rolling with your,
we won't be off the boil order for another couple of weeks, but we do have full water pressure available.
okay,
You have to bring in temporary pumps in or something, or would you?
Yep, I've got a couple of temporary pumps from around the state, and we are speed running, getting in an old booster station that was still there. We're getting that overhauled so that within the next week or two, we're hoping we'll get approved by the DNR to run water again, like non have to boil water. And then by the end of the year, we expect to have a new permanent full-time booster station that we can be proud of there. So
Your backup pump in that building also?
the backup pump that we're trying to retrofit was buried in a booster, or buried in it's a canned station that was nearby, and that's what we're getting rehabilitated. But it was a bottleneck, and it was a bottleneck we knew we needed to fix. We just didn't realize we were out of time to fix it. So,
Well, sorry that happened, that was
uh,
obviously not good, but.
yeah, it's an educational experience for, that you can't wait on infrastructure forever. You have to.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
thank you. Good luck.
thank you.
Yep. Are you folks the bonds?
Yes.
Yes.
We've done your deal, it's done and over.
Approved.
Approved.
Oh, okay. Sorry, we're moving backward.
And then, didn't know if you were for sure, I just wanted to
Yes.
clarify. If you wanted to sit or.
So we're good?
Yeah, we approved it, you're good to go.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well, you're welcome to stay, but. Is Grant on there?
Yes, I'm on.
Okay, we have Grant Anderson with MAPPA, discussion and decision to approve Cornerstone Commercial Contractors Pay Request for number 2 for downtown rehab construction work in Carson and Macedonia.
So move.
Second. Go ahead, Tim, second.
Okay, Grant?
Yeah, this is just the second pay app from the contractor. We're requesting 33,576 or 47% from CDBG. The rest will come from cities, and 10% of the remainder will just come from the participating property owners.
Will you submit that to the state then, Grant, after we approve it?
Yes, I will.
How far along are they on this rehab project? Is they close to halfway or?
I think it's a little over 30% completed.
Okay.
So I'm not aware of any setbacks.
Do you go and monitor it then, Grant, or is there someone else doing that?
I have not yet, but I will on a few occasions
Yeah.
between now and this fall. So
Okay.
yeah, I do some standard, just make sure that everything's going like it should. I'll talk to some of the contractors, just make a few notes, but yeah, I'll make a point of going out there a few times.
And you have a relationship with the owners too, right?
Yeah, I've met the owners as a group a handful of times. I've spoken to some of them more often than others, but yeah, I've met and talked to them all.
But does the cities of Macedonia and Carson own these buildings, or are they owned privately, aren't they?
Yeah, they're owned privately. There are a few in Macedonia that are, I believe, owned by a local foundation.
Okay.
Or a nonprofit group. I'm not sure exactly which, but yeah, I mean generally
They're a nonprofit. It's called the Hamilton Group.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Anything else for that? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, motion passes. Okay, next up we have.
Thank you.
Thanks, Grant. Next up, we have Donna Dostal, President CEO, Pot County Community Foundation, presentation on organization, grant opportunities, and areas of potential collaboration. Discussion only.
Yes, that pretty much encompasses it. Thank you so much for the opportunity to come today and share. Actually, I'm really here to update you all on everything that's been happening at the Community Foundation, probably over the last 18 to 20 months, between the end of 2019 and a little bit up to this present day. But and I have some actual physical packet. I know that you guys received some information in advance. But this does have our annual our impact report is what we call it, as well as pretty much all the information that there is to know about our community grants programs, as well as our field of interest funds, and just kind of what we do as a community foundation. So if we're able to bring up my presentation, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, so right here on this computer.
Fabulous.
Do you have a thumb drive or something? Or
I do not, they sent,
your laptop? What do you got?
I don't, we sent it in advance.
Is it in an email?
To a gentleman that asked if,
One second, I'll get it.
yeah, so, I mean, I have it on my email that okay. So, but we're excited to, I'm sorry?
Andrew would have had it out there.
Yes, yes. Andrew asked if we had a presentation, so I sent it in advance. I apologize if I should have had it on a jump drive as well. But, and just as a little bit of background for folks that maybe don't know that much about the Community Foundation, we are a part of a partnership between private and public entities as well as private philanthropy in the Potawatomi County and Southwest Iowa area. And we're really the catalyst to help folks be philanthropic in our community, all the way from individual grants, scholarships, and really focusing on how to have an impact in Potawatomi County and the surrounding counties. How do we make the most positive impact? How do we generate excitement for projects and projects and opportunities in the community, and be that catalyst between private philanthropy and impact? Over the last few years, we've worked with lots of different organizations and individuals to build the capacity of the Potawatomi County Community Foundation. Probably you as county supervisors know a lot more about the history, and I love it when Scott came over and at our 10th anniversary, and he's like, I gotta just come in and see what the building looks like. Wait till you see what it will look like now that we're getting it. I've had a couple people ask me, is it gonna be big enough? It's just amazing that what they can do with renovation and then adding another 1,500 square feet. So we'll talk a little bit about that in a second here. But we were formed in 2008 in partnership with the Iowa West Foundation. They provided us with a foundational grant to create our own agency endowment, and that's what we use to grant out into Potawatomi County. And then over time, we've built partnerships with the Southwest Iowa Education Foundation and individuals throughout the community, individual philanthropy, to move the needle on the impact that we as a community can have, a collective impact that is powered by philanthropy. Look at this, there it is. And so this is it okay for me to just click through?
Is there a clicker or something?
Is it this mouse?
Just scroll down on the mouse, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So in your packets, so the reason that I'm here today is to talk a little bit about 2019, 2020, some of the things that we were able to do because of the philanthropy that lives and thrives here in Potawatomi County and our surrounding areas. We are very fortunate to have 12 years of partnership with the Potawatomi County individuals that live here, as well as folks outside of Pot County. We really have had some success recently with our field of interest funds, growing philanthropy that, because we know so many issues that affect the way that we live and what we do in Southwest Iowa, those are really transient issues. They don't just live in Pot County. We have folks that come through from Douglas and Sarpy County, and we have folks from the surrounding counties. So if we're really going to affect some sort of durable change in our community for the good, particularly around the areas of the issues that are facing women, those are the things that we decided to focus on initially for our field of interest funds. We felt that we needed to provide solutions for the areas that are going to touch our county, as well as the ones that just live within our county. So at the end of 2019, combined with our individual, like our agency fund, and all of the individual philanthropy that we have had come into the Potawatomi County Community Foundation, as you may know, we started with about $6 million in 2008. At the end of 2019, we're about $22 million worth of assets, and those are both private philanthropy and our own agency fund that we grant from. And we received 405 donations into the Community Foundation during 2019. And here you can see the amount, like $20 million, where it kind of breaks out. Community grants this is our fund. The affiliate funds, those are funds that we have with other agencies. They have their savings with us, their long-term endowments. Individual funds, those are folks like you and me that wanted to come in and say, I want to create a donor advised fund that kind of exists into perpetuity, or it's something that I want to spend over the next 15 years, and I know I want it to go. And so that was, that at the end of 2019 was at about $5.5 million. So in 2020, we had a bit of a jump. We went from 22 million almost to $44 million worth of assets. You know, in 2020, it was a rough year for everyone, and we continue to kind of come out of that. But these are $44 million worth of individual funds and our own assets from our agency funds, with a total of donations totaling $14 million into the Community Foundation. So those are individuals that want to create tremendous change in Potawatomi County in Southwest Iowa. In 2019, at that time, we had 111 funds, and we granted out from those funds. There were 191 grants that were given, totaling over $500,000. And that is from folks that have invested their money with the Community Foundation. It continues to grow with us, that we've invested purposefully. And then they go in every year and they grant from that. And so it's donor advised funds, scholarship funds, agency funds, all those things that really do create tremendous change in our community. Then in 2020, it was another big jump, and we were so excited about it. And so one of the things that make the Potawatomi County Community Foundation very important in our community and creates a lot of impact is the Endow Iowa tax credit. And so for those of you who don't know what that is, if someone gives to an Endow Iowa fund, it's a great vehicle that the state of Iowa has put forth. They earmark $6 million a year in tax credits for folks that give into a donor, into an Endow Iowa fund. Since we're nationally accredited, we can issue these tax credits. And so in 2020, we had over $5 million worth of funds that are eligible for that Endow Iowa tax credit. We also, the number of grants that went out from individuals to nonprofits in our community increased to 203 grants. It was a good year for, I think, even though nonprofits struggled, philanthropy really stepped up. And we were able to be that catalyst that helped to do that. Folks gave to nonprofits through their endowed funds, through their either expendable or endowed funds, in the tune of over $500,000 in 2020.
Tony, do you
Yes.
max out on that $6 million tax credit every year?
You know, the state does. It does. They usually run out, and honestly, they take credits for the coming year, and they usually run out in probably November, just early December. But then they continue to take credits to the next year. And right now, the credits, you can use them up to 5 years. And so if you get, if you have a $50 tax credit, you could use it the 5th year. Or if you have a $500,000 track, up to $300,000 is what but if you give $500 and you get that 20% or that 25% tax credit, you have 5 years to split it out however you need to.
Okay.
Which is kind of a nice tool. In 2020, because 2019 we've already reported on that, but 2020 we grant out through our impact fund grants every year. There are those gap funds that, regardless of what an organization needs, whether it's new flags for the streets or Christmas decorations for a celebration in Avoca, all the way through to new car. One year we helped to purchase a car for Children's Square. So in 2020, we granted out 37 grants to nonprofits across, and these are grants only in Pot County. This is from our endowment, only in Pot County, totaling $54,000. This year, 2021, we did the math, and we had requests coming in for this grant cycle. Usually we have anywhere between 55 and 60,000 that we're going to grant out. The grants, the requests came in were they totaled $290,000 from 90 organizations. Their projects equaled $8.5 million worth of projects in Potawatomi County. There are things happening in Potawatomi County, and they need money, but I wish we had more to give. So, and just as a sneak preview, we don't have the numbers on here, but this year we gave $63,000 out to 48 organizations. And so that information is going to be coming out here in the press release. So another thing that happened in 2019, 2020, and we just realized the benefits of it this year, was the Richard Winninghoff gift that he gave to the Community Foundation. When he passed, he left $5 million in his will for scholarships that were actually they are exclusively for trainer and underwood graduates. And the $5 million stays in a fund, and every year we're supposed to grant out what the earnings are from that fund. Well, in 2020, the earnings were like $800,000. And so there's really not, I mean, we'd have to be given a lot of big scholarships out. So we're continuing to look at how we can best grant those scholarships out. If you know of anybody that needs, they should move to Trainer Ed. Because their children, those scholarships are going to last into perpetuity. Very generous, you know, traditionally, so Southwest Iowa Education Foundation partners with us to administer these grants, these scholarships. And right now we're working through the process of figuring out what those renewable scholarships can look like to really make sure they have the most impact. But just the most amazing, generous gift to the Community Foundation and to our community as a whole. In a similar vein, Barb Green, and a lot of you guys have probably heard about this, Barbara Green left us, the Community Foundation, her farms. And so that was 900 acres of farmland with the caveat that we would continue to farm it. And the proceeds from the farm then would go for scholarships for young people that are going to Iowa State in farming and anything animal related. This year, 2021, was the first year that we granted from that fund as well. We granted out $60,000 worth of scholarships to Iowa State students. Absolutely phenomenal. The folks at Iowa State really like us, and I'm hoping that they invite us to the Cyhawk game.
So you said you're managing,
We do.
You hired somebody to manage the farm?
We do. Actually, we created an LLC.
Is that the only farm you manage? Or?
Right now, yes, but we have the vehicle now in place. We're very fortunate that we have a couple of really dynamic lawyers on our board that are able to set these things up. So they created the vehicle, a separate LLC that we can own those farms, and that it's a nonprofit LLC. And then we contracted with Midwest Ag to manage the farms, and we have a board of directors, a separate board that manages the LLC. And they're folks that are either in the farming industry or know about farming throughout the county. And so it's Dan Peterson, Randy, Cody from Carson, I think, Randy's from Carson. Yeah, Lowell Forstall is the chair of that committee.
Who's a significant farmer in rural Iowa.
Exactly, yeah. So we have some really great, committed community folks that make decisions on how those. I know I'm from Millard, and I grew up in, went to Millard High School. There was a cornfield kind of by my house. Didn't really know anything about farming. I probably know more about farming now than I ever thought I would. It's an amazing, and even going through Leadership Iowa, learning about ag and just the value of having these farms is such a tremendous asset in our community. And so it's a wonderful option for folks that might not have, might not want their farm to be sold when they pass, might not have family that are going to take over the family farm. The Community Foundation, there's very few foundations that will take gifts of land like that and actually work them, and we will do that. So, and then this is just an example of an individual fund, a donor advised fund that we spotlighted in the impact report. The McCarthys, they created a donor advised fund in honor of their daughter that passed from cervical cancer, and they have now been granting out from that fund every year. Folks in honor of their daughter, they send money into the fund, and they continue to generate tremendous impact in the city of Avoca. They focus their grants in Avoca. And it's just a wonderful way that folks can continue to give back to their community and create that culture of philanthropy with the Community Foundation helping them. One of the things too that I wanted to really touch base with you all today about is the COVID-19 Response Fund. In partnership with the Iowa West Foundation, and I know that Matt Wyatt, and we worked very closely with him. When COVID-19 became a thing, in March of 2019, and we realized that there was going to be significant impact in our communities and across the United States, across the world, Pete Tulipana and I sat down, I remember, on a Friday afternoon, and we had a phone call, and we were like, what are we going to do? How are we going to do this? Iowa West said, well, we are committing $1.5 million right off the bat. I said, we would love to figure out a concerted way to help nonprofits and for individuals to give so that they're not confused. Let's see if we can just remove confusion. Let's make it easy and streamlined. So between Iowa West and we raised over $900,000, the Community Foundation did, towards COVID-19 relief. So over the time that this was actually at the beginning of 2021. This was the total. Right now, we're at about $1.2 million that we've granted out between Iowa West and the Community Foundation for COVID-19 response. And we are now really, in my opinion, more of moving towards that long-term recovery aspect of COVID relief right now. Definitely requests for funds to the COVID response have gone down, but we want to make sure that we have funds available. We still have probably about 80,000 in the emergency and unmet needs fund. That's what we pivoted to make the COVID response. We have money for Potawatomi County in case of floods or something like that, but those are monies that we set aside and reserved to make sure that there was something just in case we had another issue. But that's really what we have been done with COVID response. Does anybody have any questions about that? And then one of the things that we instituted in 2018, I came in the kind of beginning of 2018. There was folks in my office asking me, what are we going to do about women's issues? What are we doing about mental health? All these things. So we really, it became very obvious that we needed to pivot from individuals putting money into a fund that they just kind of gave out their money without any guidance to the Community Foundation being at the forefront of what's happening in our community. What are the needs? How do we help advise and really keep our finger on the pulse of what was happening, and then really be the subject matter expert when folks needed to understand what does philanthropy need to do for a response. And so that's how we came to our the Women's Fund of Southwest Iowa, as well as the Mental Health Fund. And so we have 4 key focus areas that we grant for the Women's Fund. The inaugural granting year was last year. We granted $70,000 to 4 organizations. In each of those 4 categories, we actually opened the fund up earlier than we were expecting to because there was such a need in childcare. And so the first round of funding went to childcare solutions to help expand childcare. We gave $10,000 to Kids Place in Glenwood, $10,000 to a place up in Essex, and then also $10,000 to Central Latino for an entrepreneurial program, a chunk of money to Heartland Family Service for them to develop in-home daycare, like on-site daycare for their folks that are going through recovery. And then we also, the second field of interest fund that we've instituted over the last 2 years is our Mental Health and Substance Abuse Fund. Last year, once again, was the inaugural year of granting from that. It doesn't have as much money in it as the Women's Fund does. We were able to grant about $5,000 to NAMI, which is the National Association for Mental Illness, and they are using that money. They can continue to use this money into 2021 for awareness and removing the stigma of mental health issues. But one of the things that makes these programs and the mental health and the Women's Fund so different is when I was at Heartland Family Service, that's where I came from, it was so important for that organization to measure the impact that they were creating through their programs. And knowing what I know about how to measure impact, it's very expensive too. And so we applied for a grant through the Lozier Foundation to build a measurement tool that we give then to the folks that we grant to. And so that's really the programming piece that we provide. They are responsible for coming with the solution in those areas for those field of interest funds, but then we give them the tool to measure their impact. So they not only are able to tell us the story of what their intended impact is and how they're affecting it, but then also tell it to other funders so that they can be long-term sustainable. And this tool, if they were going to have it themselves, this cost us almost $50,000 to build. This is something that's replicatable. They can wipe it and use it for other programming. It's an amazing opportunity through the generosity of the Lozier Foundation and some of our dollars that we put in for them to be able to measure their impact. So right now, all of those organizations that we've granted to for the Women's Fund, they are using this tool. And so stay tuned because they're supposed to put their first, they're supposed to submit their first report to us in August. So we'll see how they do. It's a very easy tool to use, luckily. And another great thing that happened in 2019, we partnered with the TS Community Foundation. They became our very first affiliate. There's lots of, so as an accredited community foundation in the state, it's great to have affiliates because that really does build our capacity. It helps them be able to offer the Endow Iowa tax credit because they can offer it through our national accreditation. So that is one of the goals that we have, is to gain more affiliates over time. Whether we were in the running for when some of the folks that went the Southeast, the Southeast Iowa Community Foundation, they lost their accreditation. I can't remember what their name was, for like Adams County and stuff. We were in the running for that. They went to Des Moines instead. But Des Moines definitely has a lot more experience at affiliates than we do, and we're just young. Des Moines has been around a long, long time. So we're hoping that maybe the next time that opportunity comes along, folks will give us a much more serious look. And then, of course, we do partner very strongly with the Iowa Council of Foundations, primarily to help us with advocacy in the area of philanthropy. There was a bill that came forward from Chuck Grassley that would significantly affect charitable giving. The Iowa Council of Foundations was right there advocating for us. And right before COVID hit, I was in Washington, D.C., literally in March, right before COVID, visiting on Capitol Hill all of our representation and talking about philanthropy in the state of Iowa. One other thing, another very fun thing that we did in 2019, and we started in 2019 and ran it through, it's actually just wrapping up this month, is we created a learning program for nonprofit leaders on how to better fundraise. And that was some of the feedback. There's a lot of foundations and local organizations that invest in capacity building for our nonprofit leaders, primarily around strategic planning and such. We kept getting information from folks and questions about, I swear there was like a parade of folks that were asking me to help them with their annual fund and such. So we built a class. We applied for a grant from the Iowa Council of Foundations to build a class about fundraising. How can we help them understand what motivates donors? How do they set up a great capital campaign? All of those things that can help them be sustainable for their here and now, and hopefully build their endowments and their long-term sustainability. So we had 8 organizations go through that, our first cohort, and we plan on running another cohort in early January of 2022. And finally, our building expansion. I know that we talked a little bit about it. We are expanding our footprint because of the growth and the projected growth that we would like to have in our community, the impact and the ability to create that culture of philanthropy. We do need a few more spots for people to sit. And so we had some wasted space in our area, plus we needed some place for our board to be meeting. So we expanded. We had some, if you're familiar where our building is, we didn't want to move from that spot. It's like the most perfect space coming in from the county and out from the county. It's beautiful between the 2 hospitals. And we just really felt it needed to be more welcoming and a showcase for our community. And when we started talking about it, we have a good relationship with the Charles Lakin Foundation. They said, that sounds exciting. How can we help? And so we put in a grant, and they said, sure. So they are actually helping us with that. We got a very generous grant from the Charles E. Lakin Foundation. And so the building will be named the Florence M. and Charles E. Lakin Center for Community Giving. So we're excited about that. Hopefully we'll be all moved in by the end of August. And of course, then we will capstone it all with a big party, because we do love to party. And we'll have a ribbon cutting, and we hope that you all come. We did win an award in early 2020. We won the Community Spirit Award from The Big Give, which is Metro Magazine in Omaha. So that was a great opportunity for us to partner with Metro Magazine then. And we did 16 pages in Metro Magazine highlighting Southwest Iowa, all about quality of life, economic opportunities, why folks from Western Omaha should not go to Fremont and Dodge County and start their business. They should come to Southwest Iowa. It was a wonderfully successful campaign. And so the next thing we would really like to be able to do, we've worked a little bit with MAPA on some community development opportunities and how we can, create a sense of pride and hope in our communities that reflects and really does draw people into Southwest Iowa. We feel like we have the ability to not only stand on that soapbox, but maybe create some funding around that to make it a better opportunity for our communities. 2020 was the last year of Potawatomi Gives. It is now transitioning to Do Good Week with Share Omaha. It was the most amazing year, though, for giving for Potawatomi Gives. Traditionally, we had never broken $500,000 worth of giving in Potawatomi County. In 2020, $811,000 worth of individual gifts into Potawatomi County nonprofits. It was amazing that it's grown over the last 3 years, but that was significant. And so we don't want to lose that momentum. So we're moving all of our efforts towards Giving Tuesday, where so one of the things that really helped to incentivize philanthropy during Potawatomi Gives, we currently, because we have our own endowment, we offer that a 10% match to anyone that puts money into an endowment with us. We increased that match to 20% now during Giving Tuesday. We were doing that for Potawatomi Gives. In 2020, we raised like $500,000 worth of gifts into donor advised funds because of that 20% match. And so for Giving Tuesday in November of 2020, we raised another $137,000 into donor advised funds. And so we're going to continue to do that this year, offer that 20% match, and help nonprofits build their individual philanthropy through helping them with, as a matter of fact, I'm speaking it's called Cup of Joe in partnership with Share Omaha next week, so that nonprofits can start planning now for utilizing Giving Tuesday as the replacement, as the next thing that past Potawatomi Gives. We don't have Potawatomi Gives anymore, but we need to have that day of philanthropy, that excitement that gets people jazzed up and ready to give back to their communities. So this is our board of directors. They're amazing, wonderful, very engaged, and they're very forward thinking as to all the different programming that we have at the Community Foundation. So grateful to them, and this is our staff. So that is my update to you all. What kind of questions can I answer for you at this time? I know it's a lot of information, and I apologize for taking so much of your time.
Wow.
Yes, we're doing a lot. And so we are your community foundation for Potawatomi County. Some of you might have heard that we're kind of looking at maybe even expanding or tweaking our name a little bit to reflect the fact that we don't only serve Potawatomi County. Our field of interest funds, we grant in the 9 Southwest Iowa counties for those. And so we've kind of been thinking about it. We have several different, as a matter of fact, y'all are gonna get an email next week that asks you about your opinion on that, if you think it's necessary. Some of the things that we're trying to expand with our field of interest funds and make sure that we're creating a regional solution for philanthropy. So I would love your feedback on that. We've got a couple of different options. We're thinking about Greater Potawatomi County Community Foundation, kind of like Dubuque did that same thing. They were Community Foundation of Dubuque. Then they went Greater Dubuque. Even a little tweak can demonstrate the fact that we are trying to create a bigger impact. So.
Wow, you said a mouthful.
That's not the
Got
first
a
time.
lot going on.
We do have a lot going on. Do you have any questions for me?
So just two is, I guess, one, there's some large companies, and one announced recently about coming to Pot County, or do they have their own foundations, and then they pretty much do their own thing through their foundation rather than work with
That's a really great question. Yeah, I know what you're saying is, do they work with the community foundation generally? They do both. They probably, and are you referring to like Amazon and stuff like that? Google actually has been extremely generous to us. They give to the Women's Fund. So the Women's Fund is a field of interest fund. They give to that because it falls in their wheelhouse. And so, it's about technology, increasing the technology capacity for women in our community. So generally speaking, if what we're doing fits in their geographic area or their expertise or their focus, I would encourage them to work with the Community Foundation. We are also working with SYNC, Pete Tulipana and his group, that, they are, looking at things from a strategic perspective, and then they come to us and say, hey, do you have any donors that would be interested in this stuff outside of our group? And so we do work with them as well. But as far as corporations are concerned, that is something that we're really moving more into. We have 6 new corporate donor advised funds. We have one with American National Bank, one with Heartland Properties, one with Midwest Ag. Midwest Ag started one when they started to manage our farms. And so corporations more and more, because it is so much easier to work with a community foundation than creating their own foundation, sometimes their own nonprofit foundation, it is a wonderful solution. And to this point, I don't think folks have really they haven't really necessarily known us as a solution, but we have, I think, been out there a little bit more and want to be out there more as a solution for those businesses, for those, larger capacity philanthropy opportunities. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Awesome.
The only other thing is that Pot County Tourism, Mark Ackelman and Golden Hills with
Michelle Franks.
Michelle, they ran these mini grants for these little communities out here, and they had pretty good success with that, and that's what the little communities need is that.
And that's where we, especially with our impact grants, we focus on our rural partners, the rural cities. When we announce our grants for this, you'll see that there are some in the Council Bus, but because we have such great representation from the county on our grants committee, they really do focus on making sure that the majority of our money goes out to East and West Pot. So you'll see that there's a great deal of money this year that was given to Minden, a great deal of money going to Carson, because we know that there's not a whole lot of funds out there for those small projects.
Right.
And we're the solution for that. And so as we grow our that general impact fund, which now is about $4.5 million, the more we grow that, the more we can grant out to those opportunities that we need to focus on in Pot County.
Perfect.
Yeah, and that money will always stay in Pot County. It will never go outside of Pot County. The Women's Fund does go outside of Pot County, but it was designed to. But the impact fund only is granted for Pot County and only always will be.
Okay, great. Thank you, Donna.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Your energy.
Thank you. Lots of energy. And this is not my first time doing this.
You got a lot of info.
Yeah.
Don, I'm gonna reach out to you. I got a couple things I wanna talk to you about. One with the tiny homes for homeless vets.
Yes,
initiative
yes.
We're looking at, and then also, I guess second question, who made your books?
So Rachel Moorhead on our team, she's very good. And don't anybody try and steal her because she's amazing. But yeah, Rachel Moorhead, she's very talented. And her and I went through Leadership Council Bus together, Magnificent 27. And I tried to recruit her for like 3 or 4 years and finally.
Yeah, we're looking to do an annual report. I just like.
Isn't it gorgeous?
So, yeah.
Yeah, it turned out beautifully. So yeah, just let me know, Justin.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks,
Thanks, Donna.
Thank you guys so much.
Okay, next up, we have East and West Pot Soil and Water Conservation Districts discussion or decision, education coordinator position. Who's leading this off?
Good morning.
Morning.
How are you?
Good.
Yeah, so you guys kind of were just talking about that rural support and such. So I think that segues really nicely into what we're going to kind of talk about and what my position is dealing with today. I do have a presentation for you guys, so I'm going to pull that up real quick.
Sorry, can you state your name?
Yeah, Emily Hugan. Yep.
And then where do you live?
I actually reside in Des Moines, Iowa right now, but I am representing East Potawatomi and West Potawatomi Soil and Water Conservation District. And then I do want to just check, we submitted a fact sheet to your board, and I just wanted to check if you guys have that. If not, I also have hard copies for you.
Is that, let's see, the program overview?
Yeah.
That's on the back sheet.
Yep.
Okay.
And so, Andrew did say if I dragged it off screen, it was going to pop up. I don't necessarily see it popping up.
Is that good? No. Hold on a second.
Get our IT guy, he'll get it fixed.
Well, I'm gonna take this time really quick to just pass out hard copies if you'd like as well. There's that for you.
There's this back there.
Oh, there it is. It's coming up. Okay,
Thank you.
fantastic. Yeah. Okay, well, like I said, I am Emily Hugan, and I am going to be representing the East and West Soil and Water Conservation District today. I don't know if there's a lag in it or not.
It's showing something different on your computer.
Yeah, it's got the full screen presentation here.
What's it?
I'm scared to touch it, huh?
Yeah,
Disappear.
you never know, you never know.
Maybe back there when it,
Oh, there it is.
Okay. That is exciting, sorry, hold on.
Oh, no, you're good.
Okay, so yeah, now you,
Yeah,
where's your,
up at the top, right, right above that is the present button.
present?
And then, yep. Fantastic, awesome. Okay, well, thank you guys for having us today. We're really excited to kind of talk to you and kind of show you what this position is all about. We are talking about the education coordinator position with the East and West Potawatomi Soil and Water Conservation District. And so I kind of want to just give you an overview of what we do. So here's kind of what I want to chat about today. We're going to have an overview. I'm going to give you a little timeline of what the position has looked like over the years. And then we're going to kind of talk about what the duties are of the education coordinator position, some of the programs that we offer, and then talking about the benefits and outcomes of that. So, if you guys don't know or you're not familiar with it, the Soil and Water Conservation District's mission is to conserve Iowa's natural resources through leadership, education, and financial and technical assistance. So that's kind of the mission of the Soil and Water Conservation Districts. And I want to say that the education coordinator position is kind of honing in on that education piece of the Soil and Water Conservation Districts. So that's kind of what we're trying to do and accomplish with this position. So a little bit of the overview, it reflects the values of the Soil and Water Conservation District mission, like I just said, and our focus is really, we're targeting the youth in these communities, and we're hoping that it relays into the families and the greater community outside of these school districts. So that's kind of some of the things that we our target audience, and then we talk about topics related to conservation, agriculture, nutrition, and just like environmental stewardship in general. Okay, so here's kind of like a more detailed timeline than what I have on this fact sheet here for you. We started in 2012 with this position getting created more as a part-time position. I included the funding up there as well. In 2013, it got bumped up to $30,000, still a part-time position. I don't want to block you. So it got bumped up to $30,000 of funding, and it is still a part-time position. In 2018, you guys, we were East and West Potawatomi joined together, and they created a full-time position out of that. The years prior, it was just, the education coordinator was just serving East Potawatomi. And in that East Potawatomi, we were serving 2 school districts, both Riverside Community School District and AHSTW. So now, in 2018, with that merge of West Potawatomi as well, we serve Tri-Center, Trainer, Underwood, and then those other two in East Potawatomi. So we're at 5 total community school districts that we're serving now. And in 2021, we actually tacked on the Walnut and Indian Creek Watershed Project as a responsibility for the education coordinator, as a mouthpiece for the watershed, and to really connect with not just the youth, but a larger audience, really supporting those rural community members and producers. I didn't really necessarily touch on it too much in the following presentation, but we are doing some really awesome things in revamping how we're connecting with the community through our outreach efforts. And one of the things that I'm really passionate about that we started is these producer spotlights for the watershed. And they are really honing in on telling the producer's story and also kind of talking to other farmers or other producers. These are super friendly, and so whether you're a producer yourself or you're just a community member, you get to learn more about what this producer is doing, what they're doing on their operation to promote conservation and really being an environmental steward of the land. So I think it's a really awesome component that we have included in just this past year. Okay, so some of the duties, this is just more about the youth engagement piece that we're kind of focusing on. It's really carrying out those conservation education opportunities and activities with the youth in the school districts, also with the greater community. We offer some other activities like a rural ramble, which was really supporting local rural district or rural communities and businesses. So that was one way that we were promoting those. We, unfortunately, due to COVID, we kind of had to postpone that with gatherings and stuff like that. So we're hoping in future years that that'll be able to come back up. We also we conduct extensive outreach and public relations programs, and that's kind of really touching on making sure people know who we are in the community and what kind of services that we're offering, and touching on what are we talking about, those topics that we're talking about with the school districts. So that's another thing. And then we also are coordinating existing programs and also really developing the ones that we have, but also creating new ones. And you'll see that in the later presentation. So here we go. This is our education coordinator programs. These are just kind of a very surface level. I just wanted to kind of give you a name and kind of just go through that. So some of the ones that we have delivered this year, we really talked on Earth Day projects across all of the school districts that we had. We have a program that we do in conjunction with Riverside Community School Districts where it's called Aquari Days, and we really talk about conservation. We talked about water, land flow, all of that stuff. Another thing that we do is the Conservation District of Iowa poster contest promoting the theme that they had this year. It's the Healthy Forests and Healthy Communities theme. And then we had Trees for Threes, which is when all third graders across the 5 school districts will get a red oak tree, which is unique to Iowa. It's the tree of Iowa. And they each get their own, and they get to plant it where they see fit. So that's super exciting. And then we also do, many people don't know this, but like the trash bags, you can't, or just plastic sacks in general, you can't put those in normal recycling. So we do a collection service, and we recycle those on behalf of the community. So having that available. Some of the new things that we've implemented is really talking about a watershed series with 4th graders, and that is really engaging 4th graders in what's water, touching on water quality issues that we have in Iowa, and starting to engage them in those topics. We also are doing a summer garden series. I'm probably going to have to jet out of here after this because I actually am doing the summer garden series this afternoon, where the kids will get to talk more about the things that are growing in the garden and really trying their own hand at raising their own crops and such. So, and then I touched on the producer spotlights. Some of the things that we have upcoming are the County Fair Youth Day, soils judging. Farm Safety Day is going to be happening either this fall or this spring because it was postponed due to COVID. Soil to Spoon is when students are better understanding where their food is coming from, and that also is in tandem with the Choose Iowa Food that we got a grant for with the Riverside Community School District. Some things that were postponed, like I touched on, Rural Ramble, a conservation superhero club that they have been running for a long time, and we hope to get re-implemented. And then the Botana Bend Day is a day where 3rd and 5th graders get to come and talk about, in Botana Bend, which is a park, and they get to talk about conservation in a lot of different facets for the entire day. So I wanted to kind of touch on, really take you into the classroom of the things that I've got to do this year so far. And this is all in spring. So as we know, COVID was pretty hot still in the spring. And so here you can see me and the students engaging. This is the way that I could engage with the students. I was in the classroom virtually, and that was a lot of fun. But we were able to still make the most of it. This is a watershed experiment per se. So they kind of get to make their own watershed with markers, and then they use spray to simulate rain. And they get to see how that kind of works. Here's another one. This is when we did get to go in. This is with the 1st graders in Tri-Center, and they were all about making these Earth Day bracelets where they got to talk about the different components of the environment and really getting active with that. They like that. Here's another one that I think is hilarious. It's called Plant People, and this is just a new way for students to kind of get engaged in understanding the biological sciences also behind growth, and plants are a great way to understand that. So again, here I am in the classroom virtually, and these are all the plant people that they made, and they put grass seed at the top of their heads, and as they grow, they can have the grass seed out there. So it's a fun way to engage the students. Here's another one. This is a nature hike that we did out in the spring where they started to talk about different aspects of nature that they got to see and really relate that back into environmental conservation and topics like that. This is more of a recycling-based activity that we did. I'm going to try to keep this short. This is with the preschoolers, and this one was fun because they got to plant their own seeds and really talk about the diversity of sizes, shapes, colors that you see in seeds. So kind of getting those aspects talked about in this program. There you can see it again. They got magnifying glasses, got to take their own seeds home. Here's another one with a conservation trailer that we have, and we were able to get hands-on with the students in May, and they were able to kind of talk about water flow, how that affects the landscape, really becoming and instilling that environmental stewardship in them. Here's one where they're learning about roots, tap roots like a carrot or fibrous roots like you might see on a weed. And then this is this is our garden that we have going. Now this doesn't look like your typical garden where you don't see a weed in sight. We're kind of trying to promote this more natural idea, keeping something covered on the land and reducing erosion and such like that. So really talking about those topics that are going to be super beneficial in maintaining water quality in Iowa and talking about topics like that. Here's one where they got to make their own flour when we were talking out of paper and cups, and they were talking about pollinators, so that was the thing that we were talking about. This is also in the garden. You can see we have a lot of fun, and kids get to kind of get hands-on and really invested in the garden. So that's the thing that I like to see the most. And then we also touched on that nutrition topic. Here they have carrots, apples, strawberries, and other berries that all can be grown in Iowa, and we were really incorporating that into our education piece. So some of the benefits and outcomes I wanted to touch on. Students and community members are becoming better environmental stewards of the land because of these programs that we're offering. So that's one thing that I think is really beneficial because it's not just in Potawatomi County. What these students learn, they carry on into different facets, whether they move or whatnot. It'll be beyond Potawatomi County. Students are also learning concepts where they're getting to do experiential learning. They're not just sitting in a classroom, they're getting to do hands-on experiences, and we've seen time and time again that's super beneficial and crucial to their learning. And then they're also collaborating with one another, which was something that was kind of hard for them to do during COVID. Students are also familiarizing themselves with conservation, agriculture, nutrition, and topics related to that, and really understanding those vocabulary words related to those topics and subjects. And then students are utilizing applied science skills. Like I said, we're talking about growth. We're talking about the different things that they are learning in school and applying them through these experiences. And the last thing is that students are becoming better connected to our food system. And like I included in that fact sheet, you can see there's only 1% of producers really in Iowa, or not in Iowa, 1% of the US population are producers anymore, which is very different and very surprising. And it's something that we have to kind of hone in on. People are becoming more disconnected from their food system, and we're trying to, through this program, it's one of the benefits is that they're getting reconnected to the food system. So at this point, I am going to actually turn it over to my board members, and I am going to thank you again. I'm going to take off so I can go teach, but I really appreciate your time and effort and listening to me today. So
Thanks
thank
for your
you.
presentation.
Yeah, thank you. You want to come on up? Yep, okay.
Does anybody have any questions for Emily before she
Yeah.
leaves? So, off to probably 100 students waiting for her anxiously.
Yep,
That's
yep.
good.
Yeah,
Thank you,
lots of
Emily.
students.
So,
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm Cammie Willett. I'm one of the East Potawatomi commissioners. And the majority of the people in this is part of our crew. So unfortunately, some of our colleagues on the west side of the county had damages from the storm, so they weren't able to join us today. So very sad, but we just wanted to come to the board. We have, if everybody from that is with our group, if you could just stand real for the sake of time. I don't know how much time we have, but I want to be respectful of our time slot. These are all the folks that are coming. We just want to talk a little bit about, as Emily said, this has been very, very impactful. You saw the history of it, how it's evolved from 2012 to now. So we have some commissioners here that have some long-standing history as far as some different positions. So I would like to invite Russ and Bernie to speak with me. I know you have something you wanted to start with, and then we'll move into it. So.
My name's Russ Brandis. When she says we have long-standing, that just means we're old. Been around forever. I had my thoughts keep rambling around in my head, and I thought I better write them down or it'll really get disorientated and stuff. So I'm just going to kind of read what I wrote. I pondered what I wanted to say today that I thought could contribute to the conversation. Based on my viewing some documents, we hired the first county resource planner in 1977. Through 2010, we staffed 8 different individuals for that position. 3 went on to become district conservationists on the federal level. That was an evolving position. When we hired the first one, and of course that was even before my time, but I don't think education was a part of that thing, but it gradually became a major portion of that job description. And through that 2010, like I said, we had 8 different people. And then in 2012, I think, is when we hired Jamie, and Jamie brought more of an education position to it. It became more of an education position. And then we that brings us to our education coordinator position that we have today. And when I first read Emily's resume, I became energized by the content of her short work-related career. This young lady worked at what I remember as the National Soil Tilth Lab. that's since been renamed, and I can't even tell you what that name is. The man she worked under was Jerry Hatfield, and he's a world-renowned in the field of sustainability and soil erosion. I heard him speak, quite honestly, all over the country, because I have been to some conferences outside of the state, and he's been at them. Does a wonderful job. He's in big demand, has since retired pretty much from the lab. And I couldn't, well, first of all, I didn't really think we'd get Emily hired with the resume she had. But she was wanting to get into this teaching mode a little bit. So we got really lucky and we picked her up. And then of course COVID hit. I mean, I met her one time in person. Today was the third time I've seen her in person, quite honestly. I met her the first time prior to COVID. Saw her the other day in the parking lot and visited through my pickup window with her a little bit, and then today. Been on some Zoom meetings with her and stuff, but like I said, third time. And I couldn't wait for this COVID to get over with because I really wanted to have her kind of teach us commissioners some of the stuff that she had learned and picked up at the Soil Health Lab. And the more I become involved in all this soil sustainability and soil erosion factors and stuff, the more committed I am to the process, and the more I see the need for someone on the front lines that can be educating us. And not just us farmers and the landowners, but the children and the grandchildren. Our perspective on the future and how we can impact it is becoming more critical in this ever-changing world. And especially when the young people we are trying to educate are the ones who will lead and govern in the future. And they are becoming more removed from the land and agriculture year by year. And now Emily is leaving. We as humans are great short-term optimizers, but we're not so good with the long-term time frames. We need to hire people like Emily, but we also need the resources to keep people like Emily. We used to believe we had unlimited natural resources, but now we are beginning to understand we're dealing with a limited and finite planet. We need to do everything possible to sustain it, and education is the cornerstone of that dynamic. Thank you.
I think this little sheet, and I hope you got that the superintendent, Tim Mitchell from Riverside, sent out. He just met Emily just a few weeks ago and brought her in. He knows what she's been doing in Riverside along with the other school districts. And I was amazed in his short period of time, the things that he feels are very important, not only to the school system, but to the community and to our overall world. Actually, it's quite a well-written letter, I think. Talks about many of the things she brings to the classroom. And it's been amazing to have COVID here, and still she made the mark she made in a very short period of time. Going back, and she started with 212 as an educational coordinator, but the whole time we've had our employee through you from back in 1977. As we moved along during the 80s and 90s, we had the trees for threes, and we had that. We always used that particular person as they grew in their position to go into the school systems and do the different things that we now have much more elaborate than what we had at that time. A lot of their time back then, we only probably dedicated 10 to 20% of their time to doing some of these projects, and so the rest of their time as a county resource planner was out working on the soils and helping put up terraces or whatever was needed in the office. But this position has become just a very powerful position to educate children, and as we all know, it's a lot easier to educate the young people as it is to try and re-educate us 50, 60, and 70, and 80-year-olds out there. So that's one of our goals, is to get into these school systems and get it started out at the basic level. And that's pretty much what I have to offer this
I
morning.
don't believe we did received that?
We have some extra copies.
Okay, it is a very,
It wasn't in our,
No, I thought it was.
very good statement of what he feels in a very short period of time of just meeting her. And he was so enthused with her and the way she works with the students that he wanted her in this summer program that's going on at Riverside this summer. He actually got the program from COVID funds, and he had really pushed for them. Some of the superintendents did not push for these funds, but you have to have a dedicated staff because a lot of his teachers want those weeks off in the summertime, and he had to try and get personnel out of his teachers and others to be there, to be with up to 100 students. Now it's taking summer school, or what we used to call summer school, but it's really bringing him up to date and getting him back on schedule. He really felt strongly that, our youth had lost a full years of education almost, even though it was a few months, they lost a year's worth. And he wanted to bring them forward. And his staff as teachers in the elementary schools really backed him on that and said, some of us are dedicated enough, we'll come and spend our time to help with this program this summer.
So we're coming as a board to your committee, supervisors, twofold. One, we, have always given an annual report, like what Emily did. And two, as Emily mentioned, she is leaving. And we've had 3 excellent educators in this position since it started, 3+, the 3 that I know of from 2012 on. But all 3 of them, even though they loved the position and felt very dedicated to, conservation and the education of our young kids, have left because there's not a benefits plan. So they do not have that. And so we are here to see if there's any way that we can collaborate. Because as Donna said, our future, of Potawatomi County is super important. And what a better way to start than our young kids. To see if there's any option county-wise or, either, like Promise Partners, anything that may have a benefits package that we could collaborate with the funds that we have and the resources we have to offer into our next educator position, so.
I think that's something that we may need to speak with our legal people about. Anything like that. Mr. Zimmerman, are you gonna say anything today? Come on, man.
Like I said, it's a countywide program. We're reaching out to adults. Our soil's only here for so long, and we've got to start taking care of it to keep supporting and feeding the world. So if there's any way we can figure out, I keep talking up to Des Moines and CDI, seeing if we can get state programs going, things like that. But somewhere we've got to come up with a way to keep the jewels that we've had working on this program with us. Emily was a very pleasant surprise when she interviewed. It's like, that's one we want. Well, she's young, she needs health insurance or some sort of program. And the whole world does. I mean, everybody. The benefits are a big part of the requirements or the job. And
How much time do you think she spends at Fuel Central? I think we had a report, I believe it was last year, they spent some time at Kern or Wilson or something like that.
as far as time-wise, I can't answer that honestly, but she goes to any school that will have her. I mean, if there's a program they want, she will take it to them if they're in the Pot County. So we aren't just rural. We're trying to get into the cities, but how many of them really want them?
I will say that prior to Emily, the last one, Kern asked to come in, and we went into Kern to do a special. One of the teachers heard what was happening, said, could you come and do that? I know we did not make the connection with Lewis Central, but Lewis Central had also called and said, hey, we heard some things going on. Could we get into this too? And with no bigger than this position is at the present time with one person, it's really short and no more money than we had to pay. We had to make use with what we could. But I think it's opening up out there as these other teachers in the education areas hear what's happening in these schools. They say, well, I could use that too here. So I think it's one of those things, it's a untapped source right now for some of the larger schools here in Council Bluffs to probably pull in. And we need to be there. Let's face it, we need to be there to educate those children so they go home and talk to their parents about where the food comes from and what happens in the whole thing. When you talk about only 1% of us are raising the food anymore, it looks like we need education.
This next question I think would be for you, Bernie, or Bob, one of the two. I think we had a discussion maybe a couple of years ago. Has legislation changed any where you can use your local option sales tax money for any of this position? As I look at our, and if it's still no, it's no, it's okay, I'm just asking.
I believe it's not for salary is the big thing. We can use
Could you use it
for
a
supplies and things, but we can't use it for salary. Is that correct?
Well, once again, and I would go to Matt for even this, it's an interpretation of the law. When we had the battle back several years ago about it, Dave Dorff, of course, was then the Attorney General, which is now retired. He said, it's merely interpretation. I can make that interpretation if you want to battle with Potawatomi County supervisors over that. I'll take it and I'll run with it, and I think I can show that would be all right to use that. But he said, and Russ and I are the two that were on at that time, we did not want that type of situation. We didn't want to have a battle over what we were doing, and we said, no, we'll just go like we're going and remain there. We don't want to stir the whole thing up like that. But it's an interpretation of what it says. And his interpretation said it was all right. Because when we were doing some of it and actually hiring and paying some people, just a couple, not for any extended period of time, he thought it was perfectly all right with it. So, and yet at the time, we had some supervisors that really found fault with us and didn't think we should be doing those type of things. And yet as Pete and I were here and met with the two Beckys a couple, 3 years ago, and their interpretation was a little bit that if it fit under categories, we could make some things work. And there was some categories there, it looked like if you hired, I'm not gonna say full-time, but for some special issues, you could do those things. So I think it's all an interpretation, once again, of the law.
I know that we had that tour, has that been 3 years ago when we
Probably.
toured that? The watershed work and all that stuff, so I know that you're spending your money on that. I've also been following the local option sales tax receipts, and they're going, it is very beneficial for everybody in Potawatomi County on that local option sales tax. And I looked at your balance. As of Tuesday, you guys have over $500,000 in there. And maybe it's all committed, and that's okay, too.
And yeah, Tim, and I'd answer that because it's not all committed. And I am like you, I think we ought to be able to tap a little bit of that for more than just supplies, and helping out funding wages in there somehow. But that's one reason we've come to you today. We want to know if there's any way we can make them possibly a county employee, or we can tap into some of that to help out. You're dedicating some 40,000 to East and West together. We've got some now from the watershed work, so we're getting dedicated for a 3-year period of time. And we can go around and find some of those, but still we need that package to be able to say we've got the full benefits for them whenever we come in. Otherwise, we're probably going to continue to maybe find these young people, but they only last a short period of time. Emily, let's be very truthful. Emily has a job right now for $22, and in 6 months, if everything's working good, it's 25, and she gets full Benny. She gets 2.5 weeks vacation. She gets her full medical and that. And you have to look at her and say, we don't want to lose you, but we can't do that. And our last two we've had prior to her were the same way. They left because they wanted the benefits. And I don't know whether the county has to do the benefits, but if there's some way we can work it out to where we can use some of those funds for benefits so we can offer them to them, or we can get into another program. I've actually, Cammie and I met, and Becky, with RC&D because there is a possibility of going through that way and they can get benefits and can go in and do it too. But it costs money to do those things. And I guess that's where we're right now challenging ourselves a little bit to see if you fellows think that there's any way we could make it a county employee and do it that way too, and yet keep it under our leadership or whatever.
Well, we've committed the funds for the position.
Yes.
You know, and I'm just thinking outside the box, and then Bob called me yesterday, but I almost think that those superintendents of those school districts or those board presidents need to get together and, I don't know if it's Green Hills AEA or whatever, and try to figure this piece out. And Matt would have to help with this, but without any, and I think that's what happened with the resource planner, without any direct supervision, county supervision. I think I got one sitting back there that was part of that process. Maria, I wasn't around then, and we used to have two of what they referred to as resource planners, and I don't know what pot of money those came out of from the county, if it was the rural fund, or what. How long were you a resource planner, Maria?
I'd say about 2-3 years.
2-3 years?
There
Was there one there before
there
you
was
went?
flood and erosion money.
It was flood and erosion money from state?
It was, I don't remember, just under our budget, labeled
Okay.
flood and erosion.
Okay.
I think it was under the Board of Supervisors, actually.
Okay. Was there one there before you, or were you the first one?
No, there was, I replaced someone else.
Okay. How long did resource planners came before 1977 or not?
That's the first record I found of them.
And they came in 77?
That's when you folks, where the Board of Supervisors dedicated funds to both East and West Pot soil and water conservation districts.
In addition to what they do for the CL 566s?
Yes, this was extra. I think the personnel was pretty short. Well, I know it was pretty short. You were lucky if you had a DC in the office and you had 2 or 3 other people, a secretary, as we call it now, when it's no longer a secretary. Becky's not a secretary, but it was back then. And about 2 to 3 other, 2 employees, and we had another part-time. And I remember Cliff Stilley and Bob Bingham and those fellows, Ed Keys, coming and visiting with the Board of Supervisors. And also the ones from West Pot, a couple of them. And I wasn't aboard in 77, however, in the fall of 78, Bob Bingham and Cliff Stilley talked me into becoming a commissioner, so. I've been there most of that time, in other words.
Ever since?
Yes.
Thanks a lot, huh?
No, it's been something, Brian. I've been through all of the state. I've been to the national level, and I'm back just working in our own district. But it was one of the greatest 20 years of probably hard work and travel that I've ever had, but it was very rewarding.
Well, I think we're gonna, if we do benefits, and I'm not saying we, the county, but if you find the benefits package for the individual, it's not a certainty that they will stay longer than any other person if they're a younger person. You know, they may decide to have a family or whatever and move on. I mean, the one gal got married. Jamie was probably the perfect candidate. I mean, her husband was he a superintendent or principal or something? Yeah. As such.
Well, I don't know, as we expected you to come through with something today maybe, but we needed to present this. We
Right.
need to tell you what's happening during the year anyway.
Sure.
But we need to maybe somehow all get on the same page and see if we can work out something to where we can make this more of a full-time position that's got the benefits with it as well.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any question on the board of the importance of what this position does. Just to be clear, I think we're all in the same boat there. I think it's absolutely necessary to do. I just don't know what it looks like, you know, because the hard part is they're going to all the schools and they're doing everything at the schools. So should the school be the ones paying for this kind of thing, or should the accounting service? You know, it's just a weird blurred line. So I'm fully supportive of it. I think we just got to figure out the best place to house your benefits. The other thing, I mean, it's just the reality of what's going on in this world right now is that $18 an hour is not going to get you anywhere. They can go and get that at Walmart, you know, and get full benefits. So I think we need to probably look at being a little more competitive with what we're giving for the wage in this too. So that's just my 2 cents. And whether it's the board that gives that or whether it's the schools that contribute or something, but you're just not, you're never going to hold someone like that. You just won't unless they're retired and, you know, hanging out. So I think we need to relook that a little bit.
But to a certain extent, it's no different than the regular education system. Most teachers could go elsewhere and get a whole lot more money also, you know, in the private sector. They're teachers because they're dedicated to it, they love it. The same thing with Emily. She left a good job up there in Ames and came to us, and she knew what the scenario was, but you know, when the other job proposed, and she didn't search out this other job, it searched her out pretty much, you know.
Sure. I think a lot of it's if you have a competitive wage and decent benefits, you know, you get someone that's probably going to stick around longer. You know, not to knock anyone that's moved on.
And we maybe do need to think outside the box, but I don't know that we can lay it all entirely on, say, the school districts or something, because this position is going out to women landowners, and, you know, farmer meetings, and
Right.
It's a lot more than,
Yeah.
even though we focus on the schools, there's a lot more there, and there's a lot more that could be done.
Yeah.
Yeah, our program's been pretty wide range over the period of time.
0 to 100.
Well, is it, when do you need to know, like, how soon, I know this, what's the timing on this, I guess?
Well, timing, we're gonna need to hire somebody, so we're ready to put out
Well, actually, Emily is already working at her other job, and but she was committed to this program for the schools, so she's finishing out. I think her last day
Well, they're
is
looking
this week.
already.
17th, 18th July.
Yeah.
I guess where I'm going with this is like me personally, I need a couple weeks to figure this out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like whether I can tell you yes or no, I need some time to research this a little bit and look at it.
And
So the
that's what we're
17th
asking.
is the last day, this Saturday?
Yep.
She was dedicated enough, and the superintendent was dedicated enough, he said, if you can spare me this time, I'll spare you. And we said the same thing. She's doing a little bit on her other job too, as she's been doing all of this, trying to keep everybody satisfied.
So in the state of Iowa, because we're unique, we have 2 soil water conservation districts. Is there any soil water conservation districts in the state that have an employee?
I'm not gonna say a full-time, but we now, after this period of time, we now have districts that are getting some 5,000 or 10,000 to put persons out to do education. That wasn't even happening 10 years ago.
They're doing it by a contract or something?
I think some of that, and they're getting monies from maybe from Board of Supervisors, maybe also from different entities or foundations that say, hey, we'll give you this if you can put somebody into the school systems to educate the children.
Yeah, okay.
So it's starting to, we've talked about it on CDI on the state level for 15 years, and it's slowly gaining, and we're seeing more districts. I don't know, Bob, I think they said something, 11 or 12 have got some dedicated funds now to do this, so it's growing.
Okay. Well, maybe our community foundation, she can help us, but we'll see. I really appreciate you guys coming in and giving us an update, and I know we've been working on this thing for a long time. I mean, all we can do is try to make it better. All of us have a responsibility up here too for the taxpayers, as you're well aware of, and you're not saying you're not taxpayers and such, but.
And your thought of the schools, since there's so many different schools,
Yeah.
how would they,
How they do it.
do it all together?
Well, that's why the AEA is
Right.
their
I mean, if they were our employee, it would make sense to have them in our conservation and have them assigned to you. I mean, that's how I would envision that if they were a county employee. But then we get into the blurred line of, is that a county function? So it's different when we have a 2080 agreement, we can say, well, we want to take this on and do it, but we have to make sure that, you get what I'm saying? Like now, all of a sudden we have an educator on staff that's educating children in schools, and it's like, well, shouldn't that be in the school districts and not in the county boards? So we have to, I gotta look through all those aspects of this.
Well, and then the man hours in the different school districts, if they all come and request, then one person isn't gonna be able to probably give it the.
Yeah, and you build the schools, they're not gonna do it, they're just gonna say, no, we don't want
That
to
is one thing we've learned in the last year, though, is they can service several schools at one time via Zoom.
With the technology we now have, it's much simpler than what it was at one time, because when she pushes that button, it can go to every one of them. And that's been a major change in that personal being at each one, so.
And then I think if we get changes in superintendents or principals at schools, you may get different kind of, whatever, blowback or a different type of, gotta go introduce our deal and, the teachers and such, so. Yeah, give us some time to give us our think outside or inside the box and see if we can kind of come up with something.
I'd say, we wanna give them a date, it's August 3rd, give us a couple weeks.
And if you guys would like to put together like a 2-man committee and have somebody from our group sit in on it too.
If you guys put a meeting together, I'd be more than happy to sit in and try to figure out the way to do this. Justin,
Yeah, I'll jump on it, yeah.
Well, you guys are, West Pod.
Yeah, I'm on the commission, I'm not leading.
well, I live in Ottawatomie County.
I understand, but you live in West Pottsville District, West Pottsville Water Conservation District.
It doesn't make any difference, we represent everyone.
No, I understand.
You're all in a watershed.
No,
That's what's important.
Put Tim and I on there, to be brutally honest with you, I'm leaving for a week tomorrow, but, after that,
That's okay, we're not in a rush,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Let's do it right.
That's right.
Yes, we need this laid out.
Yeah.
That's why I was saying, I hope you fellows can think out of the box a little.
Just in your back
And we
mind.
can think out of the box a little bit. And as Russ said, if you can put a couple of guys together to meet with a couple of west and a couple of east, we're all Potawatomi anyway. To bring back to the full group, it would be probably a good committee to work on.
Okay.
Well, the good thing about that is, Bob, is my wife leaves on Bradbury on the 23rd, so I'm pretty much open for it.
You're not supporting.
You're not the driver.
I'd ride my Harley in it, but I don't think. But I appreciate you guys coming. Stay in touch with us, set up a meeting, we'll make it. We'll see if we can get something.
Thank you for all your support.
We'll exit then and go have a board meeting.
Yeah, we're gonna have our county meeting on the way home. If you can find a clone for Emily, let us know.
Thank you.
Wearing all those different hats, that's. Those different levels. 0 to 100.
Do you have a job description for that? Yes.
You want it? I actually have it.
We have it in our packet too.
That was, thanks, Kevin.
Yes, thank you, guys.
It wasn't really a job description. I didn't assume.
Objective and scope of the district coordinator position.
I gotta get to my minutes for today's meeting. There you go. You bet.
I want to tell you, my kids were born and raised in West Hoboken. They learned about agriculture up there. That's why the kids like it. When my daughter comes home on the weekend and she says, "Dad, can I go ride in the combine?" I've never ridden in one. So the closer we can get these kids to agriculture, the more it expands what they'll do in lifetime.
What the schools all used to have, FFA.
They're getting stronger with FFA.
It's kind of coming back.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, it's
But I
very
mean-
strong right now in the school district.
Even the conversation around cover crops, I mean, just.
They used to
It
have,
used to happen.
they used
so.
to have those even in the schools in town here.
Are you ready?
Future farmers, okay?
Dr. Elliott, are you okay for about another half an hour?
Sure.
Okay. I mean, I know you're.
I was just here to ask for a big raise, but after seeing Emily, she can have it and double her salary and keep her. No, I'm just kidding.
She was good.
She was amazing. Yeah, go Fireball.
She's a powerhouse.
We got Rachel Hamilton, CEO and President of Marnie Alcorn.
I'm gonna try and be brief.
Boy, must be in here a while.
Shalmar
Yeah.
Zeta, Rural Development Manager, Advanced Southwest Iowa, discussion of a decision to write a letter of support to OCIO to support Empower Rural Iowa Broadband Grant request to expand broadband access in rural Pot County.
And I'm really just here to support Rachel,
Okay.
you know, that's one
Yeah.
of the roles.
Okay.
So I met Shalimar through a business owner in Council Bluffs, and it's been a great experience for us to get to places like this, to be able to present, so I thank you for that opportunity. I'm Rachel Hamilton, I live in Walnut. Marty Alcorn was started in 1914, two separate companies, Walnut Telephone Company and Marty and Elkhorn Telephone Company. And in 2016, they merged, and we're now known as Marty Elkhorn, which can be somewhat deceiving because, as I put in my presentation to you, 60% of our customers reside in Pottawatomie County. I gave you a presentation in your board packet. I want to know if you want me to go through that. If you have questions, you would rather just ask me how you would like to proceed, I guess.
I don't know that we got a presentation.
We received a couple of those.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, yes.
So,
Go ahead.
Rachel, you cover Minden, right?
Yeah, actually, so in Pottawatomie County, we have Avoca, Minden, Neola, Underwood. We serve the customers in McClelland with fiber, Weston, Bentley.
Don't you do Hancock?
No, we do not. That's Farmers Mutual out of Harlan.
Okay.
So how far towards Council Bluffs can you go?
We have fiber at Weston.
Can you go any further than that?
Well, yes, we could go. Yeah.
No, I'm serious.
Part of what
No,
she's-
yeah, definitely.
Part of what she's asking
So-
is there are agreements and there are things that have been changed over since certain other entities did not fulfill their requirements to the state for their contracted areas. And so part of what she's saying is they want to apply for a grant in order to expand into those areas that weren't being served because they were being held for someone else that didn't end up serving them.
So when the governor released funding on July 1st, there was $97 million that is out there for companies like us to expand our service territories. It's all based off of a map, and the map was released July 1st. We had an area in mind that we thought we would go to expand our services. We had to pivot a little bit because there were more areas available for funding than what we initially thought. We had a board meeting last night. Our board was quite aggressive and decided they wanted to serve a large part of rural Pot County, rural Underwood, heading towards Crescent. And in those areas, we would pick up the potential of 600 residential customers, approximately 80 business customers.
They're mostly in rural, they're outside
They're
of
all
cities,
rural.
they're the farmers and people that need the technology.
Right, we have Underwood, and so we are constantly being called by the residents of rural Underwood, Crescent, can you serve us? We're 60% fiber on the existing communities we have. We have some in Shelby and Audubon County. Our first priority is to continue to build to them. But when this grant was released, it gave us the opportunity to look at going to other areas, as well as fulfilling the commitment we've already made to our existing customers to bury fiber to them. So with this grant, it opens lots of opportunities for us to build with subsidized funds. On the paper that I provided you, where we really need support is we need a letter of support from the Board of Supervisors, basically saying that you endorse us building in Pottawatomie County to serve the rural residents. We're also looking for a contribution of up to $10,000. Part of the grant scoring is based on outside funds, external, state, local, federal, or funds. So there's 100 points scoring your grant application. We submit all the grants. We've engineered all the areas. We have all the materials to submit the grant. We need a letter of support from the board saying that you support Marnie Elkhorn building in rural Pottawatomie County. I have letters of support from residents in Underwood, rural Crescent, you know, who we are as close as a mile to them, who would like us to keep building to serve them.
And the deal is that without the third-party support funding wise, it does make their grant application and their scoring from what they can see not as attractive. That's something they've added, the CIO has added that they want to see a third party assisting,
So I thought, I didn't see that originally, but they're wanting a financial contribution too?
Yes, we have to, so
from us.
exhibit.
From you for $10,000.
Yes.
Just, is that the minimum ask, or is that?
That's the minimum that we are asking. Number one, you would never, so when our application goes to the state and they score it and it goes through the application process, and if we are approved, that's the time that we would, that you would have to provide funds to us. We just
But
have
if they
to.
don't get it, then you wouldn't.
Right, going through our application process, we just have to say that we have the support by a letter, and also that we have external funds towards the project.
And then this is the map they have in there, right?
Yes.
This is the proposed map, and the thing I want to point out to you guys.
I didn't get that.
No, you didn't get that. So again, last night when we met as a board.
Yeah. The thing I want to point out to you as your economic development person in rural Pot County is this flags. It goes right along I-80, which is huge for me to be able to say that we have buried fiber along I-80 and some of those sites, for instance, the Wellborn site that I have 100 acres that I could sell, that is highly developable, but it doesn't have the right internet for it.
I'm in favor of the latter. As far as the funds go, we'd have to discuss where that'd come from.
It'd come out of the American Rescue money.
Oh, yeah, I guess,
Right,
yeah.
and I've been
No
reading
doubt
that,
about
and part of
But,
that.
but only, we'll only if you're successful, I guess.
Right,
So-
exactly. If we're not successful and the state does not award funds to us,
Right.
you are not out a dime.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
I'm not a wizard of this broadband world, but, you know, the expectation for uploads and downloads should be what?
100 up and 100 down.
The state would like to see 100 up, 100 down. When we're building fiber
That's for the
currently,
grant.
that's for the grant. We can do 1 gig up and down.
Which is what any normal business, even just the size of a small, medium business, 50 employees, would require a gig up
So
and
the
down.
state is minimum requirements 100 up,
by
100 down.
Yes.
What would you be doing today?
1 gig. They could do it for a gig.
Oh, what does the,
What are the
what is
people,
it?
customers getting now?
So I have a letter from a resident in rural Underwood who is getting, on a good day, he'll get 7 or 4 down. His upload is typically half of that.
Okay.
And he's trying, he works in healthcare, so does his wife. They've been trying to work from home for the last year, and they cannot do it. And so that's what we're looking to facilitate, to meet the needs of those residents.
Okay.
What's your typical internet cost right now for one of your customers?
So we don't just provide internet, we do
All I
telephone,
want is
internet, and cable.
internet.
$75.
A month?
Which is very reasonable.
Are you regulated?
It's what everyone else does.
You're not regulated, so you can raise it to $100 a month.
She could, but then she'd be in competition with everybody else, and then, I mean, it's the same as, you know, the gas station down the street could charge $4 a gallon of gas, and the other one charges $3.50, and everyone's gonna go to $3.50 even if the gas is.
Not if they own the line.
But if they own the only line, but there are competitors in all of these areas. I mean, we've gone away from the thought process of allowing monopolies to happen. Frontier had a monopoly in Oakland. Literally no one else was able to provide them. And it was $75 a month, and I can tell you on a good day, I got 3 up and maybe 2.5 down.
So when the fiber goes in, I mean, it typically, I mean, we're, like the world of dark fiber is what they refer to us. I mean, you put in a whole bunch of fiber, right?
Right, correct.
You know, you just don't,
Yeah, we build for the future, we don't just build for today.
But they're not gonna let somebody else provide an internet connection off of their fiber.
well, I don't know how they do that.
Right.
I know Cox is doing it with Dish, I mean, it happens.
Yeah, they do, they got agreements they do with that,
I
I'm
think
not sure what those are.
If the
But you're gonna
state
go probably
loses-
more in our right of ways, right?
Right.
You'll be running in our right of ways.
The only thing I wanna make sure, we're not any, no competes or anything, are we, that we know of with this, if we give money to this?
There's no, what the grant opportunity is opening, there was another company that was committed to that area, that because they hadn't done anything for so many years, the grant area opened back up. So it's basically a free-for-all. There's other companies in rural Pot County that could apply for the
For
same
those
area.
areas, exactly. And so our
It's just up to
application,
whoever has the best application.
for us to get awarded these areas that we're going to apply for, we need to be scored near the top. We need to come out on top.
So you get the funds, like, what's your turnaround time on this, like, what's realistic?
So we have until April 2025 to build it out entirely. This is a big build for us. We are just finishing up Avoca now. We've been doing that for the last 3 years. We're moving to Neola in August. Neola will probably take us 1.5 years. Unfortunately, with COVID, we have a little bit of supply and demand on materials. We have everything we need for our current builds in Avoca and Neola. But that's nothing that, everybody's gonna be in that same boat.
he's not.
I just don't want us to get in a situation where, okay, we support you, we give you this money, you guys get the grant, and then you don't get it done. And then
Right.
it's- we're
We
right back
don't
where we
get
started.
reimbursement from the state until the project is complete. So we applied for a small grant similar to this. They've changed the scoring this year, but for some 20-odd customers in rural Avoca. We built it out, it's done, 8 of them are connected. We did not get that grant go-ahead until last fall. So we are 100% committed.
Is it reasonable to ask that the county doesn't provide their support until you've built out the same reimbursement way that?
Oh, yeah, entirely.
So once it's built, then you would send your 10 grand?
Absolutely. We have the funds to build it. We just need to be able to put on our application
Right.
that you are supporting us.
Right.
I make a motion, we sign the letter of support.
And the additional financial support too?
The 10,000?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do.
Okay.
And I would invite you at any time to stop by. We have offices, Walnut, Avoca. If you want to look at any of our areas, any of our current builds going on to see how the fiber is deployed, we would love to have you.
Second. And second.
I'll second it.
Okay, any more discussion?
This is the only one we receive for this area, right?
Right.
Somebody else maybe put an application in.
I mean, at the end of the day, I'll just be honest, like, I don't care. There could be 15 companies, as long as we get fiber to those communities, I don't
Right.
really care.
I agree,
So,
absolutely.
I don't know if
It's time.
anybody else is gonna. I mean,
That's one of the number one complaints out there.
It's due on July 28th, so the
It's
fact that they're not
already-
into
it's
you
not a
yet.
complaint, it's just the reality is we will not grow if we don't have internet in these communities. Like using a Verizon My Card or whatever is not gonna, it's not gonna work for a business that wants to have a nice big business in some of these small towns. So if we wanna sit stagnant, fine, but honestly, I think every opportunity we get to do this, we should take advantage of it. So.
Thank you.
you know,
Appreciate your
I just
time.
don't think,
Taking the boat yet.
right, I just don't think that, I mean, you gotta come in with some other infrastructure if you're gonna come in and try to, I guess, compete with them and such. I don't know,
big commitment.
Cox hasn't been very aggressive, so, since I've been around.
Well, they've let us know they're not really interested in expanding in rural Pot County. I've tried to get them onto a couple other businesses because they have a line that runs out to OSI and they're not interested, so.
Who's that?
Cox.
Oh.
Or no, that's centrally. Sorry, that's centrally.
For us to add on, I'm David with the IT department.
Right, I was gonna
Is
say.
it possible to put on in the deal to connect county resources? For
I
example.
mean, I would welcome working with anyone one-on-one. I mean, we are open to providing broadband anywhere we can in Pottawatomie County.
We don't have to be inside the blue map.
No, not at all. We can build as a company and go wherever we want. The board that I have right now is very aggressive. You know, we've known for a long time how important broadband is. COVID just exploded that to the rest of the state.
And now with this grant system from the state, people are gonna jump up and down about it.
And a better
Exactly.
CIO that's saying that you have to actually meet those 100 up and down. You don't, it's not just providing them, it's, are you meeting the 100 up and 100 down?
The reason I ask is we're
much
building a new
better.
county shop on East Mills Drive. That's
Real close.
not necessarily close to Underwood or Crescent, but
It's real close on the
if you're
map.
gonna get grant money,
It's on that map, I think.
is it?
Yeah,
Okay, so
it's real
if
close.
the board is saying yes to providing the letter, then maybe we get
A little more expansion.
something out of the deal. You know, we would like to have
Right.
high-speed internet at that shop. I know we would.
Well, and privately, I've had 3 other businesses reach out to me, one of which, you know, Power Tech, reach out and say that they would like to try to get Marnie
Yeah.
Alcorn into their area as well, because they're not being serviced appropriately,
Call
so.
for a vote.
Yeah, and I mean, not to discount what you, just real quick, I'm
Yep.
sorry, not to discount what you said, I just think we need to research what our needs are 100% before we can say, you know, throw this on here, because I don't know, we know what goes on. You might have an idea, but like specifically, what do we need? That way we can figure out if they can even handle it. So I'm comfortable moving forward with the vote as is.
So we're gonna, Shay made the motion and Groby second with, sign the, letter of request and the 10,000 coming out of, ARA funds.
Letter of support.
Letter of support, that's what I said, didn't I?
Mm-hmm.
You said letter of request.
Oh, letter of support, I'm sorry. And then 10,000 coming out of the ARA funds. Okay? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
You need
Appreciate
the
your
original
support.
letter then, or,
I can provide you with a letter
well, we had
and,
one and we did it, but then
okay.
Shelmar told me not to do it, so I don't think.
She's always telling me.
I like to tell people what to do.
If you wanna get,
Something in my
you wanna get what you want for the language in there
Yeah.
to us,
Absolutely.
you know, and then the how you want the 10,000 written in there. Okay?
So
I can do that.
So you can provide that to
Yep.
Andrew and Andrew can get it to them to sign.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I
Thanks,
appreciate
ladies.
your
Thanks,
time.
guys.
Yep. Appreciate it. Yeah, if we can kind of get the whole county, hook connected, I think it'd take us a long ways. You want a 5-minute break? Okay. We're gonna take a 5-minute break here. You'd think with all these fiber companies we have around here, we'd have
Do you want a stick around?
fiber everywhere.
Absolutely, yeah.
Hey, is your
I can teach her.
I don't know this
Yeah.
camera guy is probably gonna show up.
Okay. Well, we're going to use for our own courthouse, so small thing, but of course, we like to, got a new shop on Eastern Hills Drive, right by the airport there.
Yeah, I noticed that, it was amazing.
Underserved area, but that area is ready to pop, I think.
Yeah, oh, I think so.
Because there's the airport, got a county shop there, you've got Iowa Western Community College there, and they all have their own plumbers. Okay.
And Paul, you don't know, yeah.
Well, the shop is going out there. The shop is going out there, it's gonna have plenty of.
Yeah. I like Amy, the new downtown resource coordinator. I've been meeting with her monthly. I meet with her monthly, and then I've also gotten a powwow going with her and Amber Moore, and then whenever Macedonia gets theirs on, I think I wanna do a quarterly chat between all three of us. If there's anything I can help with that, I'd like to.
I just gotta get the MOU, I have to approach the city council, get the MOU signed, and then that's really what it is.
I mean, yeah, sounds good. If you wanna pawn some of that off on me, that's literally what I'm here for.
I need to do that and then get I gotta get Shelby County, Shelby the city to sign an agreement with me for the building codes.
For the building codes?
Yeah, we're gonna do a building permit for,
Oh, yeah. I emailed Rasmussen this morning about 80-20 agreement or something along those lines for we need a bigger ROW for the ROW land that's next door to it. Bigger right of way, and so I emailed John to find out if they want that to be under county or city. Cause I think they're gonna do an 80-20 agreement with them, Whipple Road or whatever it's called. So.
I don't know, are those roads in the county or are they city?
They're in the county
Are
technically.
they county?
Yes, and they're fully in the county, there is no 80-20 agreement on them.
Oh, wow.
And so that's one of the things we're working out, is getting an 80-20 agreement, but leaving it in the county, and so I'm guessing it's the county that wants to retain the deed.
Right? If you leave, you're like.
For the ROW.
Well, I just hope I don't get called out.
Theoretically.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, that has that hotel that burned down.
Okay. See you later, have fun. Enjoy.
It's not me. Okay, but this stuff here, that's, isn't fair. Cause that's another thing that should not be.
How's all your staff doing?
Hey, we're doing okay, yeah. Good. You know, we kinda made it through. It was a rough year, as you know.
Yes.
And, but overall, we just need more staff. just so short on nurses, it's amazing, you know? I don't know what happened, I think it was a perfect storm between some kind of just retired and stopped working because of COVID, and others went traveling to make more money. And
Kevin, are you on the phone?
I think it's all over though, you know, and so, that's our biggest battle now, that we've kind of pretty much, we have a straggler COVID patient in the hospital every now and then, still not very many.
I've been surprised what around us.
Hi Sherry, how are you? Oh, you know, this weekend, they go home this weekend, and I cannot wait. They have to go. My dog had a litter as well.
Let's just,
That's a lot. So they're heading to their homes.
Well, I've got 3 left that need to be.
Well.
Dropping them on doorsteps, it's May Day.
What kind of pups?
Yeah, I think they're making, I don't know, this is my opinion, I hope it's right, I don't know, I'm not an expert in immunology. But I think this variant thing, I think they're making a bigger deal out of it than really need to. You know, hopefully, I think it's probably one of those things where.
I don't.
It's not gonna be a whole lot different.
I got a rescue we adopted here a little less than 2 years ago.
Other COVID already.
He's sort of a hot mess.
So hopefully the
He loves
vaccine
us,
is the
but
same with that.
he's not so sure about the other million people here. So I think he had a pretty bad run his first home, so.
I know. Yeah, we'll see if we get the vengeance of the regular influenza, since we saw none of that last year. Or what?
That was amazing.
It was crazy. Well, there's a lot of these summer little cold viruses going around, I guess. I don't know what it is, adenovirus or what. You talk to a lot of people that have a little virus now that they normally don't, you know. More people getting around each other, maybe, I don't know.
They didn't want to talk about Hancock.
Yeah.
The gray one?
And they go through Hancock.
Because I was very told about Pfizer. Yeah, and I looked out and I'm like.
But it might take 5 years.
Crap, all the mud, yeah. And they were
Well,
working
but
on
they
it.
don't want to talk about. That's one of the other companies.
I don't want any of them.
Oh, there are a lot of people that
There
got
still
dogs that are
might
like, no, we don't want them anymore.
Yeah, I had 2 do that.
Really?
There still might be.
It was like up at the top of the hill. I woke up and I had no water, so I called. No, it was.
And then
Get a
so much
rescue.
destruction.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're getting. That's the issue we get into with our current regulation, which is awesome for us. You know, sort of like got people over, he has to go elsewhere. And, you know, he's just, you know,
Was the old farm.
rescues have their own baggage that you have to deal with. You don't know. Maybe you get lucky.
That is so.
Because my actually my granddaughter is right next door in that big yellow house.
So you have.
Because, you know, of course, we're on the
What's
north
our
side.
meeting for Monday?
Okay, we ready to go? Robin,
His wife.
ready to go here? Robin, there, Ambrose?
Yes.
Not a drum seat because it's raising.
Yeah, that's,
I don't
yeah.
know if Kevin's been around here, no.
Spoken in full transparency. Speak to my attorney, Tim. Oh, yeah, good thing. He is, she is. That's a he.
He is. But she's 25%.
So you're gonna have, so there's only an eighth sheet.
15 pounds?
50 pounds.
50? Oh.
Medium-sized dog, now you're like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm gonna try to call him if I can run, I thought of it.
Okay, Rob, is this discussion and decision to approve and authorize chairman to sign amendment to the professional service contract with DLR Group? I thought, did we not approve this already or not?
Yes, you approved to move forward, the contract wasn't ready, so I sent the contract over, and this is just to, I guess, make it official and sign the agreement with DLR.
Okay, so, someone want to make a motion to?
I'll make that motion.
Schultz made the motion. Sign the contract. Sign the contract. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Motion passed. I swear I signed.
That was easy.
That was simple. You had to listen to all that
Good job, Rob.
stuff.
Thank you.
Before you go.
I'll try to make this quick.
Thanks for stopping by today.
We signed this last week.
Who is managing the construction for the county?
Do you mean a management company, or what do you mean?
What if the change order needs to happen? Who's taking care of that?
It'll probably be me, I would say.
Okay. You know that we're using I think we're using $1.5 million of your drug forfeiture fund for this.
I was not aware what was decided or
Yeah,
what
so-
you guys worked out.
Yeah. We're using 1.5 million in forfeiture to help pay for this, whether or not $1 million goes into this and $500,000 goes into firing range, whatever, it's all kind of the same big picture, but yeah, we're taking 1.5.
Perfect.
So if
And he's
there-
probably texting me right now too.
if there's any changes in the work, would you come to the board, talk to us about it before we just jump in and do anything?
Absolutely.
Okay, because, we're out of money, man.
I understand.
Rob, I really appreciate you handling this for us. I got all the confidence in the world in you, and I mean that, seriously.
Thanks,
It'll
Tim.
be neat up there.
It is.
It's very needed too.
It
When I came up there and toured that, you guys are tripping over each other, I can see that. Good.
Thanks, Rob.
All right, you bet. Thank you, guys.
Should've told, now go through here and go to Andrew and say, why'd you make me sit there for 2 hours?
I wondered, but.
Just to torture you. See you, Rob.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I'm open to it.
No man saying, we can use that.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. Ready for vacation.
Another one.
Okay.
How long are you gonna be gone?
Well, okay, other business, Sherry Dahlheim and Chief Medical Examiner and Investigator Coordinator discussion and or decision to approve. And Dr. Elliott, good to see you.
Good to see you. I haven't seen you guys for over a year, so I
Has it
decided
been that
to
long?
stop by with Sherry. So yeah, thanks for all your support. I haven't met you yet, and so Chris Elliott,
You
pleasure.
guys still masked up at the hospital?
We do,
You are?
yeah. We're kind of reviewing that closely, but with the new variant out, we're trying to decide, since we're all vaccinated, but the public isn't yet, so.
Okay. Review and approval of out-of-county resident reimbursement policy charges.
Out of county, you're up.
Okay. Well, the first item, with the out-of-county policy charges, Iowa code allows us to charge other counties when one of their residents passes away for charges that we incur. That would be autopsy and transport. We currently bill them for those, and have been. What other counties have been doing, that I've observed over the last couple years, is that they will bill different fees from their county in addition to that. So they'll charge us a medical examiner fee for review of the case. They'll charge investigation fee, some charge supply fees. Not all of them are consistent in what they're charging or what the different charges that they have. So what I created there was just an example of what some counties are charging us and came up with a proposal on what we would charge other counties when one of their residents dies here, and we'll send them a bill for our services. So we have to
It's not
have.
gonna add up to a ton of money, and, we've always balanced this over the years, with keeping goodwill between counties and so forth. But it's valid, charges that we could be bringing in because our office is doing real work on these. And it's not like we're gonna try to gouge anybody, we're just trying to kind of get back the time spent.
You recoup your costs.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, and it would generate nominal revenue in terms of, comparison to, what our office does for a budget, but $375 per case, and we're gonna have less than 20 cases a year from out-of-county residents. So it's not gonna be a huge amount of money, but it'll generate a little bit of revenue and recoup some costs for what we're spending.
So is the code written that you can get reimbursed for out-of-county deaths? Is that how it's written?
Yeah.
Yes.
For your actual expenses?
Yeah, it is, it's written in that form there for you. I wrote that for you,
Okay.
exactly. So,
Is that your recommendation, Dr. Elliott?
Yes.
Is that your recommendation, Sherry?
yes.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, so let's see.
That's the,
You made the motion, Tim?
Yep.
And Brian second. So does that mileage one change with the feds mileage, it looks like?
I'll base it off of the federal rate every year.
And then, we've never been charging before then?
We've only charged just what we've been billed from the state or for transportation, which is what we're allowed to charge.
Okay. So I'm looking at these ones here, other counties' fee schedules. Some of them are range from $100 to $200 to $300 for the same thing then?
Exactly. It's variable, but their offices are also structured very differently sometimes than ours. They may have only a medical examiner and no investigators. So every office is structured differently in each county.
Okay.
So
So for this year, halfway through 2021, have we had any out of county?
not very many, and again, it's usually gonna be around 10 or less.
Right, but have we
I
any
couldn't
this
tell you
year?
the exact number. There's been a couple, but if they're autopsy cases is where they're most notable because I'm getting the bill for that, but those are delayed. So I haven't had that many because the billing is always delayed at least 12 weeks on those.
Sherry, we send those to Ankeny, don't we?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm for it.
Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, motion passes. Okay, next up is 2 new on-call medical examiner investigator positions. I think that should be 2 new part-time on-call, right?
Well, they're not technically part-time,
Oh, they're not?
Mm-mm.
They're purely on call.
right?
Okay.
All this does is broaden your gene pool for that, right? I mean,
Correct,
It
it's
doesn't cost us more money.
Dollar for dollar is the same for hour per hour. The question that it begs is that, do we need to get approval to add them every single time if it's a new position, even if it's only on call? Because it's not an additional cost.
I'll make
So
a
if I wanted to add more later, do I need to get approval?
I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second.
I guess I'm not sure why you would need approval to add. Can you think of Matt or Jana? Can you think of Matt
Right.
Wilbur, I guess?
I think if Sherry's keeping it budget neutral, which is exactly what she's doing, then I don't think there would be a reason to. Because we don't work, this came up this week, we don't work on an FTE system where Sherry's given X number of dollars, but it's tied to a number of positions or people per se. If it was something where Sherry was experiencing growth in her business, if that's what you want to say, and it was gonna now cost more money, then the board would probably want to know about that.
Exactly.
But that would be, in hindsight and hard to, you couldn't even predict
So
that.
what are the steps to becoming not an on-call investigator? One would be quit, I guess, resign or whatever.
Yeah, we only have one full-time person in the department, and that's Sherry.
Right.
Everyone else that we have is very, very on-call, part-time, so to speak. And they all have full-time jobs, and it's a demanding job, and it doesn't, give a lot of remuneration for it. These guys are passionate, and ladies, about doing it and so forth. And so it's not uncommon. We have a couple that need to do something else, and just to be flexible to add more because, Sherry being full-time, it's difficult for her to pick up all the nights and weekends, and that's why we have, these on-call folks to pick all that up. And it's very helpful.
Especially in this environment, I guess.
Exactly.
So,
Well, and then
so
you
what
have-
if, I'm on call
Mhm.
and I don't know, I call and say, no, I can't do it, or something just happened, I got a sick kid, or I don't know, whatever. So is there a tree that you go down then, or?
We have a group text usually, and you text your coworkers and say, hey, can anyone cover me? If no one covers, it's me.
And how many of those strikes do they get, the person?
It happens, it's quite variable, but, I think our bigger issue is when we deal with, in the summer, they have their full-time jobs and they all wanna take vacation, and so we have
Right.
less availability. We've got 2 out on medical right now that have been for 3 months, and it could be a couple more months. So when things like, or people need to have procedures or, life.
Medical stuff outside of, from our
Right.
department wasn't
Right,
caused
right,
on, but still, they can't be cleared because they have to be cleared to do heavy lifting, they help with bodies and different
Right.
things like that. It's a physical job, and so
And they-
that's put a little strain on our call schedule the last few
We got
months.
one that has kiddos
And
graduating.
then they may not, after 6 months, they may not come back.
Right.
Right,
That's
and
exactly
there's
right.
no way to know, really. It's hard to predict
Well,
until.
until they tell you, I guess I'm not coming back.
We try to keep regular, updates and still contact all the time, but
Okay,
you just gotta write it out.
yep, okay. So you're just bringing on 2
Fill in the gaps,
right now, you got 2 waiting to jump on, I get taken or not?
gotta post it.
Oh, okay. Okay, any other questions?
I don't have any issues with her bringing on-call employees. I think that the board should be notified when she does.
Well, yeah.
Absolutely.
We don't need to come for approval, but notify, is that
Well,
okay?
they should go on,
Payroll status.
well, they should go on the consent agenda or on the receive and file, one of the 2, right?
Yeah.
That's what I think too.
Sherry, what are we paying these on-call people?
They start at 18 per hour.
No.
That's a segue into the
While they're
next.
on call.
Yes, it is. When they're on call, before they get called out, it's $1 per hour. That is
Is
their,
that even realistic anymore?
no. Would you do it for $1 per hour?
Hell no.
Let's
Thank
finish,
you.
let's finish this one, let's finish this one up. So all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, motion passes. So you got 2 more coming.
And you can work with Heather at post.
Yeah.
Okay, she already knows.
Sherry, I'd like to work with you on that and see what other places are doing and
Okay,
a little more realistic. I mean, if a person's on call for what, 8 hours?
it's usually 12 or 14-hour shifts.
Okay,
14.
they can't have a sarsaparilla for lunch.
Right.
I mean, they can't go to an after-hours lunch thing at the chamber. I mean, they can't do anything.
They can go places, but they can't consume alcohol, and they have to be able to, our response time we request is within an hour to get to where they need to be within the county from wherever they might be. So if you wanna go to a movie, knock yourself out, but you're gonna have to leave in the middle of it if you get a call. So it is restrictive in some ways, yes.
Do we have a lot of calls?
It varies. It just depends, you can get nothing on your shift, or you can get 3. I mean, it just depends. There's no prediction.
But you got an hour, you said, right?
Say it again, I'm sorry.
You said they have an hour,
We request that they respond within an hour.
within an hour. But that means they have to go and, or do they have?
I mean, it could be Atlantic, which is 40 minutes away or something,
But I mean, the vehicle, they have to.
They drive their personal vehicles,
Oh,
and they have a go bag. So they always
Okay.
have their gear with them when they're on call, if they remember to have it with them. So they're always prepared when they're on call. So
Okay.
we've created that opportunity for them.
Okay. Okay, approval of job description revision for medical examiner investigator. Did that,
I'm gonna hand this over to Deanna.
was there a?
I gave that to Andrew, and he must not have sent it to you guys, the update.
Okay, we might have to get on the agenda for another day.
Okay.
So you're looking for the actual job description?
Why can't you just use?
That's what they're asking for.
Well, Can I explain it just a little bit?
What is
It might change your mind.
No, do you have a red line version of it or something, or?
No, because what we're changing is the dollar amount. We're asking for the starting pay to change. That's the only thing on the job description that's changing. So I would not have a red line
Okay.
version.
Okay.
But because Sherry's staff, they're not on step and grades, they're on call staff, so their compensation is different. And so what we'd like to do is change that starting wage, which I think you have, do you think they have this in their packets?
Do you have?
Do you have something that looks like
Yeah,
this?
they do have this.
You should have this in your
Yes.
packets? Okay. So what you have right there are the current employees. You have their hire date, just so that you can see seniority. And you have their current base pay. So as Sherry stated, the starting wage is about $18 an hour. That is difficult to get employees to do this level of work for that rate of pay, especially when they're on call. It's not full-time. They're not getting any sort of benefits, similar to how we've heard our other group talk earlier today. So what we would like to do is to raise that starting pay to $25 an hour. And then we would make adjustments to the current staff, as you see there in that table. So those current staff that have 0 to 2 years of seniority would be bumped up to $25. 2 to 5 years of seniority would be given an additional 50 cents, $25.50. 5 to 8 years, 26, and 8+ years, $26.50. We have some comparables there that we helped us to kind of make this decision of $25, because I think the next question is going to be, well, why did you come up with $25? Just based on some other positions, and we feel like that would be a much better pay to get people to want to do this type of job. That's not guaranteed, right? You can be on call for 14 hours, and I just made $14, right? But the chance of me now making $25 an hour if I get called in versus $18 an hour, we think will really help. The potential cost that you have there, were those my numbers behind there?
Up at 250.
We put in an average of 250 hours per person to get that cost, but that's not, Sherry looked and ran a couple numbers, and it's more like 150. So,
I saw $9,000.
you saw what?
Yes.
9,000.
Yes. You see 9,000, that's if each person worked 250
that's like
hours
maxed
per
out.
year.
$9,000 per employee?
No, per total.
But you're saying that's a third high, basically.
It's a high estimate because the two people that I looked at, one gives 6 to 7 shifts a month availability and she did 100 hours. And then the other person I looked at gives about 14 shifts availability per month, and he averaged for the year 150 hours. Now, granted, it's extremely variable because there's no guarantee of call out when you're on shift. So.
This won't require a budget amendment for you next year, will it?
You know, Mitch was involved in our discussion and he didn't feel that it would. And I finished the fiscal year, that line item finished with $8,400 left on it. And that's pretty darn close to that estimate, but
To
we
the high
estimated
estimate.
high.
Yeah.
So if you get called out,
Mhm.
you get guaranteed,
Minimum 4 if you respond to a scene, minimum 2 if you just handle it over the phone.
okay, but minimum 4 hours, right? So that's $100.
Correct.
And if, what was the other, 2 hours you said?
2 hours if you just have to do phone calls.
Okay, so there's a phone call.
Occasionally, we get a call from a hospice agency, patient passes away at home, and we can just kind of talk through that. Doesn't need to be on the scene, taking photos and things like that.
Okay, sure. You have quite a few of those, I would think.
Quite a few, yeah. Nursing homes and things, they don't absolutely have to call us, but occasionally they do.
Many hospice places that are around.
How many hospice agencies are there?
Well, I would say, I think there's 5 that I can think of.
5 or 6. We had a new one that started last year.
Really?
Hillcrest. They're based in Omaha as well, and they started over here. Mhm.
Okay.
We don't have that
Is that
many.
your recommendation?
Yes.
Is that your
I think that would be
recommendation?
appropriate.
Is that yours, Jen?
Yes.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
You thought they were gonna say no?
Just wanted to make sure.
He wanted it on the recording.
He wanted evidence.
So, did you second that?
Yeah, I second it.
Any other discussion?
Sherry and I will work with payroll to make this effective in August.
End of August.
End of August, because
With
that's,
new hires.
yeah, that's how long it'll take to get the new hire, so that's when it will be effective, just so you know.
Okay, what, I saw those. So the last one you hired was in 2020.
2 of them last year.
Yeah.
Correct.
They're still with you.
Is anybody leaving this year? Did you tell me that Jeff was thinking about it?
He's considering full retirement next year. He's been planting the seed, yes. I'm trying.
Talk to him.
Let him go.
There's no IVers or anything else with these?
They get IVers, nothing else.
They get IVers, do we have to get so many hours or something?
I think you have to have if there's a gap of a certain amount of time is when they lose it.
Okay.
So if they don't have a deposit within a year's time, I'm not sure exactly. That's a
Okay.
Jenna question.
So you got somebody's from 2013, 2009, 2007, wow. Oh, Karen's still doing some?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
We have good longevity on our team. We'd like to keep it that way.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate
I
it.
can stay sitting here.
It's good to see you.
Yep.
Hey, thanks you guys, appreciate it.
Yep.
Saving lives now.
I'm just gonna wait through all this stuff.
Portland's the exchange forms.
Matt Wyatt, Director of Planning and Development, discussion and or decision on approval of job descriptions, positions, and funding for public health.
So I'm back here for a third time today. I wore a tie and I have my lucky socks on. And I put a penny in my shoe. So I try to cover all of my bases with this one. I've been approaching the Board of Supervisors in relation to the 3 positions additional to the Public Health Department. The first one being Health Equity Officer, the second one being a Promotions Coordinator, and third one is on Quality Assurance. Now, we've worked with the Board of Health to make sure that we were staying in line with what Mr. Wickman had asked for was our 5-year plan. We did review that at the last Board of Health meeting, and all these positions do line up with where the Public Health Department was slated at going starting back in 2017 when we held the strategic planning sessions. Justin Schultz, Tom Hannafin at the time were a part of those strategic planning sessions, and that really kind of set forth where we were headed. We knew that we wanted to do 3 things really well out of a public health department, and that was going to be our communicable disease investigation. At the time, it was obviously more related towards TB, E. coli's, things like that would come into our area. We had our STI program that came through us from the city of Council Bluffs. We had to make sure that that was brought up to where the state wanted it to be at. And then we had our regular immunizations program, which is through the VSC programs, that's vaccines for children. We were a part of that, and we hold those different clinics. We have those 3 areas really well now. And now that those are done, and I think, there are obviously going to be some efficiencies that we find in them, moving out of the COVID relief. But these 3 positions are really going to hit the next highlights of where public health was headed with the community health needs assessment that came out and was released. It was released right at the start of COVID. We did a press conference on it in conjunction with Sarpy and Cass County, Douglas County, because it is a metro area community health needs assessment. And it was at that time where the Board of Health adopted the resolution that racism as a public health crisis. And Douglas County's over there, they're opening up an entire department focused around health equity. I believe they have about 6 individuals that are going to be working out of that department. And obviously knowing the scale of what we're dealing with and what we have, our health equity officer here would really help carry that resolution forward and make sure that all Potawatomi County residents, rural and urban, are able to meet those care needs that they have. The promotion side of it, We've talked about this in Pot County for at least 5 years now, maybe even longer than that. We don't do a good enough of a job celebrating the things that we have, pulling those different partners together. This promotions person for the Board of Health, public health has such a fractured history within Pottawatomie County. We have a number of partners out there that are doing items that are in any other county, you would see them underneath of a health department. So we are going to have to utilize our promotions person to not only lift up the items that we're doing, but lift up the items that those individuals are doing, because all of that is going to correlate back around to meeting our goals of lifting the public health outcomes rankings through the Robert Wood Foundation. We've gone from 98 to 90. We want to keep that ball going. And, I said, you can probably pull up the recordings back when we started in 2018, I was saying I wanted to be around 50 by the time we hit 5 years. I wanted to be in the top 10 by 10 years. I think it's doable because of all of the things that were going on in this county. It was just, we had to pull some of those things together and be able to elevate those out. These positions all relate back to it. The options that I came back with, just due to the conversations that we had here at the board level before, option A was to take an existing amount. We were turning over around 356,000 was rolling over from our budget back to the general levy. I asked that we roll over 275,000 of that to help cover these positions until they can be levied for in the next fiscal cycle. And or with the ARP funding that Pottawatomie County is receiving, I asked that we hold out $1.1 million of that, and that would cover these positions then for the next 5 years, allowing us time to build the grant basis to help cover those. And I can tell you, but I'm excited to tell you really, is that even since the last time we met on last Tuesday to now, we have already found $369,000 that was going to be able to be allocated towards these positions. So that's $369,000 that's available to us until 2023. It's coming from the state of Iowa. We just signed the contract for it. It just got forwarded back up. It comes through our preparedness as a
COVID response.
COVID response grant. They're making those funds available to us until 2023. So we will be able to bill all $369,000 of that to help contribute towards these. I don't ever come to the board lightly when I'm looking at adding positions, and especially when it comes on the health department side of it. When Marie and I went and toured the other health departments, we didn't only tour them just to see their programming and their facilities and how they're doing. We toured them to figure out how they're getting funded, and they get funded through all different manners. And the method that we've been using here at Pottawatomie County has been working really well. And we're able to turn back a lot of money to the Board of Supervisors at the end of every fiscal year, reimbursing it through grants, and we'll continue to do that. So I'm here to ask for the support on this.
I like everything, but I don't like funding it through the ARP deal. That concerns me, paying for positions with that money.
So I'm gonna argue real quick, devil's advocate. The reason I think that's the best place for it is that's the intent of that money. The intent is for us to have recovery and make sure that we're prepared for things down the line. I mean, it literally is what that money's for.
Right, 1.1 million?
If you designated that amount, that would cover it for 5 years.
It says 4 years.
Out of 18 that we're getting, so plus he's got rollover money that we take in anyways.
So are the chances that we would use that 1.1 fully, or with this grant now, would that come off the top of that 1.1?
Our goals would still be to be out there seeking grant funding to reimburse those.
This would just guarantee the position in the meantime until those funds are there, like for sure available. I mean, the reality is this, like we need these positions.
We do.
When I talked to Matt, I told him that the argument I'd have would be with the public relations person, but we do need to celebrate our victories. We need to tell people what we are doing. We have shot clinics all over the county. People probably don't even know that. And most entities around here that get a bad reputation or whatever is because they just simply don't tell the good side of what we do.
When would you start this?
We would post for them as soon as we were okay from the Board of Supervisors on the funding of it.
What, the 369,000 grant?
$369,252, yes.
That can be used, right, to pay for everything? For a year?
We are going to utilize that, yes.
That pay for all 3 positions for a year?
Right, but those are reimbursable until we expend the funds, we bill to the state, state reimburses us.
So we use that 275 for that to begin with.
Correct.
So the 1.1, it's really just, we're just saying,
Guarantee. All we're doing is locking that fund up so that we can guarantee it. And each year that you go by, you're adding a year guarantee if you keep that money there.
So, these people, we've had some people in these positions during the COVID deal, right? Some of these people don't.
These positions, I've looked to fill with the last 3 individuals we have left over from our COVID relief. These would go to internal postings.
I mean, we've got some vested time and money into these people and kind of vetted them and already.
Over a year and a half.
In some, fashion or another.
I feel like the county has expended a significant amount of funding in just training them. They have obviously made it, worth their while through the vetting process. It's probably been the longest job interview of their life, over a year and a half of making sure that they were at work every day. And there were weeks where these individuals didn't have days off for 28 days at a time.
Matt, are these positions absolutely needed post-pandemic?
These apply more post-pandemic. They don't even apply to a pandemic.
Do you think that the promotions officer or the promotions person would be the first one you should hire instead of your equity officer?
Well,
I'm sorry, I'm probably reading the names, the positions
You're
wrong.
close on the titles.
Their titles wrong.
Yeah, you're close.
So it'd be the numbering
I mean,
system.
how would an equity officer know anything unless our promotions person was out there trying to figure out?
The numbering system that's utilized in those positions is not prioritizing them at all. It is just the number of positions and a list that go down through there.
The person surveying that though, they're just sharing the story.
There's a community health needs assessment out there that they utilize. There's a health improvement plan that they utilize for those activities. There are different groups from the Childhood ACEs reports. There is, I can't even think of the other one, the Wellbeing Partners Mental Health Study.
The way I see it, if we don't do this, we're just gonna stay in the 90s percentile we are right now in public health. And the arguments are, well, the private sector should do it. Oh, these other entities should do it. Well, they haven't. They haven't been doing it. They haven't been doing it for decades. So like we either need to
It
make
sure
investments
sounds
and
like
change
we
it,
have
or we
shortage of people too. I mean, doing our tasks.
It's one thing that I told the Board of Health that is categorically across all county departments that you see is that you do not see depth in positions. And that's what I was trying, when we talked through the Board of Health about the importance of these positions and what it would mean. Right now, this quality assurance individual is also gonna help Maria out with payroll. Payroll comes up, I lose Maria's assistance for a day and a half. Because we have people in 2 different payroll systems trying to rectify each one of their hours individually and figure out not only into the payroll systems, but then what grants do they go with that as well. And it literally takes Maria out for a day and a half just to sit there and do payroll. So all of them, those other activities that could be going on aren't because she's stuck there doing that part of it. On the other days to where there may be meetings and all those other things that somebody needs to go to, Maria and I end up having to split those off between each other because of the grant billing that goes on. When you go to Billy's back to the grant, you have to go back through an employee's, it's just like a FEMA reimbursement. You have to give them a day-by-day breakdown of how many hours they spent towards each activity and justify then their wage between the fringe, and they don't give you the allowable fringe, but they tell you there's an allowable fringe. So then you'll send it up to them and they'll say, well, that's too much fringe. Can you cut back the fringe? And go through those different pieces on that. So we're definitely not just trying to bank up a bunch of people that are gonna be there for the sidelines. These people are gonna be out there in the front working on all of the different issues that are assigned to their job roles.
So you believe that you can use the grant for this year? For this fiscal year?
Correct.
And then you have a possibility of making sure that through this next 6 months or whatever it is, make sure the jobs are needed, right? The people you put in those positions, do we really have enough work for them and they're needed?
Well, once they get brought on board, there's a 6-month probationary period.
And then that could be part of your recommendation budget-wise next year, to cover those expenses? Still go after grants to try to reimburse some of that?
Correct, we will. I mean, we'll be able to, with those 3 positions, we'll be able to reimburse the county $369,000 through 2023 already.
I want to make a motion that we approve this.
Yeah, I mean, so the rollover money, just to help me understand this, the rollover money, is this been a continuous rollover? Or is this just strictly because of COVID that we have this extra rollover?
No, so I had them go back and pull the years prior too. And so we had returned back over $100,000 each year prior to the year of COVID. Now, there wasn't anything in the 1920 to 2021 because I think that, that was all just smeared with COVID. So
Brian, I'd like to just ask for a friendly amendment on yours. You know, if you're gonna make the motion to approve this, I think that we do a combination of the grant, the rollover dollars that we have, and I'd also like to ask that we back it or guarantee it by the COVID relief or the AR.
I would go with that on your recommendation,
So
yeah.
the intent is that you don't
For the
spend the
5
ARP
years.
money, obviously. The intent is that you always go after these grants. But the reality is that all these employees already, they exist because there's grants there. So if the grant's not there, they already, and you said it yourself, I mean, they operate in that environment anyway, that they know if these grants are gone, their position might be under the gun. So it behooves them to make sure that they're doing their job and making sure that these grant monies are out there for them to exist. So I don't have a problem with it, and I think it's absolutely needed.
Okay, so, and.
I'll second that.
Well,
I
I'm
agree
seconding it as long as you're okay with it.
Yep, I am.
So you're.
Thank you.
I am.
So what's the motion?
That's how I was.
Motion is
Oh,
to
that's a long
approve
one.
the,
Job descriptions, positions, funding from public health.
and basically the funding would be
With
the rollover
the grant,
grants.
with the grant money that he's received, whatever permission from already, from the Department of State.
Iowa Department of Public Health.
Iowa Department of Public Health, and then, what'd you say, ARA money?
I just want to guarantee it based on for the 5 years.
ARA.
For 5 years?
Well, that's when that's what the ARP states you can do. You have 5-year time limit on it. So if we don't spend the money in 5 years, you're out the money. So it doesn't matter.
But if we do 4 years.
Like there's strings attached to that ARP money. So like if you don't spend it,
If we need the employees, we should be levying for them.
I don't disagree with you, but I think every opportunity we get to pay for my grant dollars, we should too.
It sure sounded like the grants
let him
will come forth.
get grants to pay us back.
I know Mitch isn't here to speak to it, but Mitch did make one comment when I was talking with him about this, and he thought that it might be a good idea to designate some of these funds towards public health like this, because then it's going to, since that being the intent of them, it's gonna get less questions asked of us on the residual funds.
So.
I don't disagree with you, Tim. I know what you're saying. I guess we're probably talking.
I think we got 3-4 years to work to that. Okay, so the 369, was that a per capita number they got?
It was the formula they came up with at the state and sent down to us. That was the I always call this grant the gimme funds because it gets sent all the way across the state. Then they put it out to the public yesterday as well, that nonprofits and health departments can apply for funding, so we can get an additional $5,000 for this health equity by applying for it. and we will be submitting an application for that.
So,
But also, so can all our local nonprofits and things as well. We pushed it out to them because we hope that they'll apply for it.
so with salary and benefits and everything else, the 369 is gonna cover the first year.
Definitely.
Yes,
Definitely.
And that's, the grant was wide open, you could use it for whatever you want, or not.
We have budgets that we put into the grants.
The grants are targeted towards vaccinations and health equity.
Okay,
So going out and doing vaccination clinics, staff time to further those efforts, to promote those efforts, to get the word out in the community, and then just pull that equity piece in to get people.
so does this grant run, was it supposed to run from July 1st to June 30th then, or?
So they've updated this grant a couple different times throughout COVID, and they just sent us another contract amendment, and that's what we received after the last week's meeting. So this one runs now, they say it runs till 2023. They could very well come up and the state could say, well, we gotta get rid of more of these CARES dollars or more of these other funds, and they could put more funds into it potentially.
Okay.
Or they could make more available competitively.
This is until 2023?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Any other discussion?
I wanna make sure, what is the motion?
The motion
It's a motion to the 3 positions, and then, you know, the funding mechanism would be either the rollover money that they were intending to roll back, utilize the grant dollars that came from the state of Iowa, and then we guaranteed it with ARPA.
So we're gonna hire full-time employees with part-time money.
It's guaranteed for at least 5 years, yeah.
Well, yeah, but we may,
But that gives us the time to figure it out.
yeah, we may be able to put one of them in the budget next year. Depending on where we're at.
That's not part of the motion, and
No.
it's not, hasn't
No.
been part of the discussion either.
No, I know. Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, hey, when,
Is Lee coming up, or is she?
no, I don't think she'll probably come up. Treasurer's report. You all got, Andrew sent it to you.
I found some good infographics. It's nothing for discussion, it's just for your own information.
And I don't know if you saw the treasurer's report, Matt.
Really? Did you just say that?
What's that one?
People poverty,
Poverty, that's the biggest problem we got.
more than 10%.
That treasurer's report.
That's gonna keep us from getting to 50th in the state in our health department.
Well, that's his goal, he's better get there.
We're gonna do it.
He doesn't have that control over that.
Don't tell him that.
His lucky socks.
But in the treasurer's report, where did I see that at? Wick, where's Wick at? Yeah, this one.
I'll make a motion to approve Potawatomi County Treasurer's semi-annual report for 1/1/21 to 6/30/21.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Thanks, Brian. Any discussion? Hey, Matt, just real quick. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, motion passes. Okay.
He's gonna tell me later.
Well, yeah, two things. Did you look at that magazine I gave you the other day then?
I haven't yet, it's sitting right there.
Okay, okay, yeah, I'll give you a holler in a little bit.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay, next up we have, Motion and a second to approve or disapprove of the following applications for the assessor's office homestead. 203 recommended, 1 not recommended. 24 recommended military, 2 recommended disallowed. This is able veterans, 7 recommended allowed, 0 recommended disallowed. Business property tax credit, 28 recommended allowed, 6 recommended disallowed. Family farm, 1 recommended allowed and 0 recommended disallowed.
So moved.
Second.
Becky, real quick, those that building commercial property tax credit, that 6 were disallowed for why, you know?
Well, on this sheet, it says one's not in Pot County.
What sheet?
Yeah, the one she gave us.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Yeah,
You
it's on,
should have
it's in
these
here.
sheets that has reasons on
Right
them.
below it
I don't
said-
need any more explanation, thank you for that.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign, hearing none, motion passes.
Andrew should
Okay.
have food by now too, by the way.
Okay, we need a motion to go into closed session pursuant to Iowa Code 21-5, parent 1, parent I, for discussion and or decision on personnel matters.
Say so moved.
Roby. Shay, second. Okay,
I need to shut this off.
well, we need to do roll call here first.
Okay.
Roll call.
Is Matt Wilbur gonna be around?
No.
Chairman Belt,
Aye.
Supervisor Shea,
Yes.
Supervisor Wickman, Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Groby.
Mix it up a little bit. Did you say there's something out there, Justin?
There should be food.
Before we go to closed session?
We did go to closed session.
We have not. We did vote to go into closed session.
Right,
So I need to.
so shut that off.
Close
Shut that off.
and phones are off.
Well, we gotta
Oh,
Yeah, I
shut
know.
that down.
Matt had to
Andrew just
leave.
needed, this thing's still going, he said, we need to get it
Showing
shut down.
recording.
Is it shut down?
Yeah. Are you getting it, Becky? Or getting it?
All right.
I'm just doing Board of Supervisor closed, and it says recording.
Yep.
Brian Shea.
I'm sorry, go get some pizza.
Yeah, go get some pizza.
We can wait. Scott, you wanna say Scott Bell, is that what you want to say?
Yeah,
Okay, wait.
yeah.
Lynn Roby.